Chapter 2164, Evil God, Explode. Chapter 2164, Evil God, Explode. Long Fei was not an idiot. He would do whatever others gave him. Moreover, what kind of person was the evil god? He should be the most vicious and shameless person in the world. We're brothers today, and tomorrow he might be scheming against you from behind. He believed that this kind of person would give his life's worth of effort to him. When the mute spoke, the tree bloomed like a flower. Moreover, the black hole Long Fei released was indeed powerful, but the evil god could not stop it. After all, he was the evil god, the number 2 boss in the world. How could he die so easily? The black hole swallowed the evil god, then disappeared. The system beep did not make a sound. The evil god's power was still floating in front of Long Fei, like a spirit body. Everyone was puzzled. What is he waiting for? Boss, swallow it up. Boss, absorb the power of the evil god. On the other side, Main Temple and the other generals rushed over frantically. We can't let him swallow it. Absolutely not. Facing the profound chi of the second powerhouse, who could resist the temptation? Who could refuse? As long as one could obtain this power, they would be able to become the second powerhouse in the world and become an evil god. Its existence was even stronger than main artifact-S. However, Long Fei was indifferent. Long Fei looked at the evil god's power that was floating in front of him and smiled faintly. Evil god, aren't you tired like this? A simple sentence. The energy that was floating before Long Fei's eyes suddenly trembled. If Long Fei did not have the system, he might have absorbed it immediately. But the system beep did not ring. What did this mean? This meant that the evil god wasn't dead. The body of the evil god had already been devoured by the black hole. If he didn't die, then there was only one possibility, and that was that he was hiding within this mass of energy. He wanted Long Fei to absorb his energy and then possess his body. It was incomparably sinister. Long Fei grinned and said, "The two of you singing and dancing. Your acting is really interesting. If it was in my previous life, I would definitely be able to get an Oscar. However, speaking of acting, I am your ancestor." Suddenly, the soul-slaying blade in Long Fei's hand moved. He abruptly retracted all of his strength and infused it into the soul-slaying saber. He exploded his strength and slashed down. Soul slash. Soul-severing saber. Soul-severing saber. His attacks on the soul could be said to be fatal. Under the evil god's normal state, a single slash from the blade would not kill him. However, now, when this slash landed on this force, it was like a stream of a blade. In seconds, his power quickly trembled, and in the air, the evil god's trembling voice sounded. "Hong Tu, save me, quickly. What you promised me, save, save, save." Boom. The blade slashed down. Soul destruction. The power in the air trembled and contracted rapidly. Finally, a beam of bright light exploded from the power. Finally, the entire power started to explode. The evil god's blood-curdling screams continued to ring out. At that moment, Hong Tu also did not move. Same as at the beginning. He did not have the intention to save the evil god, and from the very beginning, he had not wanted to save him. Of course, he knew that since the evil god had this move, it would naturally be good to take Long Fei's body. If he didn't succeed, it wouldn't hurt Hong too much. Anyway, it's not like he died. The only thing that could be said was that the evil god's steps were too insidious, like walking on a tightrope. If he met someone else, this move would definitely work. But meeting Long Fei, who had the system, if you don't die, will the system beep sound and try to lie to him? That was difficult. Now, the evil god's soul shattered, and the miserable screams slowly faded into the air. At this time, the system sounded out. Ding! Long Fei's eyes flashed with a light as he said excitedly, "Second boss, what can you drop?" That was a little too awesome. Excited, Long Fei had wanted to kill him a long time ago. However, it hadn't exploded, and now it finally did. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing Evil God for obtaining 1 billion experience, 1 billion holy power value, and 1 metamorphic energy value. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Seal of Evil King. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Evil Laws. Do you wish to cultivate it? Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Evil King's power. You wish to fuse it? Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing Evil God. Do you want to start the lottery draw? A random lottery? Wow. It's been a long time since I've drawn a lottery. Come, come, come. Long Fei moved and said, "Activate." Ding. System notification. Level not high enough, unable to start. Long Fei. Stunned. System, are you insane? You need to level up your lottery draw. Did you get water in your brain? Long Fei was a little angry. He had never met anyone who wanted to draw with different levels. Wasn't this a scam? The activation process failed several times in a row. The level of the notifications wasn't high enough to start. Level? Long Fei was now in existence of the highest level in the top 100,000 planes. Even his experience had exploded. Since he couldn't activate it now, there was only one reason. The rank mentioned by the system was not the one of the 100,000 planes, but rather the one of the universal world S, if that's the case. Long Fei pondered for a while, then muttered, "Can I have a good time first?" Sigh. Forget it. Long Fei kept the lottery system, turned and stared at the evil law idea, and said, "Merge." The 130th law energy entered his body. The power of the evil king. Fuse. Long Fei chose to fuse them again. In that instant, the power in Long Fei's body started to boil, like crazy streams of energy and steam emerging from his body. The air continued to emit explosive sounds. At the same time, Long Fei's body also continuously exploded loudly. The aura of the evil god spread out from Long Fei's body. Fusion? He fused it. Didn't he destroy the evil god's power? Why is there still such a powerful force? Just what kind of special talent does this Long Fei possess? The evil god's power was obviously killed, but Long Fei still received the evil king's power. Hong Tu's eyes tensed up, and he said inwardly, "Is this the reason why Master wants your body?" Long Fei, what exactly is your body hiding? Buzz. Evil King's power erupted from Long Fei's body. He stared at Hong Tu and said solemnly, "Hong Tu, you are next." Hong Tu laughed sinisterly. "Long Fei, don't be hasty. It will make you feel better." While they were talking, Hong Tu swung his sleeves and said, "Withdraw." He didn't plan to start a war with Long Fei because he still could not grasp all of Long Fei's strength. Of course. And it was not because he was afraid of Long Fei, but because he was waiting, watching Hong Tu disappear. Long Fei, who was floating in mid-air, suddenly dropped down, and the side effects erupted. Chapter 2165. Ancient Fire Soul Spoke. Chapter 2165. Ancient Fire Soul spoke excessive consumption of blood essence. The after effects of the attack. Long Fei had endured it from the start. He was worried that the sovereign would discover. When the sovereign left, Long Fei could no longer hold on and directly fell from the sky. With a step, Jojo flew into the air and directly hugged Long Fei. Tears uncontrollably flowed down as he muttered, "Young master." Long Fei's face paled, and all the power from his body instantly disappeared. He struggled to speak. "Jojo, don't worry. Don't make everyone worry." Then he fainted. The sequelae were different from the last time. Last time, Long Fei had really consumed too much energy. However, all the energy in his body had been drawn out as though his cultivation had been crippled, and he had no idea if he could recover Long Fei's energy. As he fell, the soul bead flew out. After pausing for a few seconds, a system announcement sounded out in Long Fei's mind. Ding! Wild God energy plus 200 points. It had absorbed the soul of the evil god. The evil god's soul only had 200 arrogant god energy value, which was a little too little. As to what use this arrogant god energy value actually had, Long Fei still did not discover it, no matter what it does. As long as he completely absorbed it, a hint would be revealed. Long Fei was not worried. Within the empty space, Hong Tu bowed and asked, "Master, what kind of secrets is Long Fei's body hiding? How could he absorb that person's power when that person was killed? I was flipping through all the ancient books, but I still couldn't find this technique." Vanity Deity's words were ice cold, as he said, "This isn't something that you should know about. As for why, forget about Sovereign Hong Tu. Even he didn't know about it. Moreover, even the entire gods tribe did not know. They were all trying to figure out what exactly was hidden in Long Fei's body. Just what kind of power did the Long residence and the Mu clan plant in Long Fei's body? Was it the power of the ancient inheritance, or some other power? With regards to the Mu clan, even was unable to understand what kind of person she really was. This was also what God's tribe had always wanted to know. During battlegrounds / Vanity Deity could also see it through Hong Tu's eyes, but he could not understand it either. Hong Tu immediately shivered, lowered his head even more, and said, "This disciple won't dare to do it again." And Vanity Deity's expression softened as he asked indifferently, "Did something happen to Battleground?" Hong Tu replied, "Not yet." Vanity Deity said, "Not now, but it will be soon. Your cultivation can completely suppress Long Fei now, but now is not the time for you to do so. You have to wait until the time of the change in heaven and earth, when that will be Long Fei's calamity. Understand? Only when you do as I say will you be able to suppress him, and then you'll be able to find out what exactly is hiding in his body." Hong Tu replied, "Disciple remembers everything." And Vanity Deity nodded his head, looked at Hong Tu, and said, "Now that I have settled this, I will try to help you out. At that time, I will let you become an outer disciple of the Tian clan." Hong Tu's eyes shone with a bright light. Excited, he said, "Thank you, Master." An outer disciple of the Tian family? Descendant of God's tribe. What did this mean? This identity would be considered supreme glory in the universal large world. He had once wanted to keep the 100,000 plains as his local emperor, but now, the status of the outer disciples of the God's tribe was much better than the local tyrants of the 100,000 plains. His heart was instantly excited. Vanity Deity looked at Hong Tu, the corners of his mouth hooked up slightly, and then he waved his hand and said, "All right, let's go back." "Yes, sir." Hong Tu's figure disappeared. At this moment, a young man walked out of thin air. Then, Vanity Deity also immediately bowed, as if he had turned into Hong Tu, and said respectfully, "Young Master." The young man said lightly, "Has the mutation started yet?" Vanity Deity shook his head. "No." Thinking about the question Hong Tu asked, he couldn't help but ask, "Young Master, what exactly is the strength that Long Fei possesses? It doesn't look like the power of the ancient inheritance, nor is it the power of the Dragon Palace, nor is it the power of the Mu clan. Instead, it seems to be a little similar to his mother's, Mu Wanner's, power. Could it?" The young man sneered. "What power is important?" "Air." Vanity Deity immediately lowered his head, not daring to speak. Indeed, To the gods' tribe, is power important? No matter how strong one's strength was, in front of the powerful gods' tribe, they were just trash existence. The gods' tribe was too powerful. Long Fei's appearance had indeed attracted the attention of the gods' tribe, but not all attention. The young man said coldly, "No matter how powerful he is, he's just a gift for me." Vanity Deity replied, "Yes." The young man asked, "How is the mortal king's disciple doing?" Vanity Deity immediately replied, reporting to young master, "I have already sent people over. I'm afraid it is impossible for him to become Long Fei's extradition person." The young man nodded and laughed. Extradition person is gone. It will be difficult for the Long residents and the Mu clan to bring him back to Universal Large World. Now, I'm just waiting for the mutation to start. However, the young man looked at the empty sky and muttered, "The change should have started. Could it be that Uncle is lying to me?" Then, the young man vanished into thin air. Vanity Deity also disappeared right after. Devil Island. Long Fei came out of Battleground. Even after 3 whole days, he was still unconscious. Jojo served beside him the entire time, just like how she served Long family back then. Outside, countless people were anxiously waiting. The fact that Long Fei had fainted was a secret. Other than the few core members, no one else knew. Jojo muttered while holding Long Fei's hand, "Young master, you will definitely be fine. You definitely will be." Just as Jojo was holding onto Long Fei's hand tightly, a strange scene appeared. The ancient fire soul stuck its head out from Long Fei's sleeve gently and looked at Jojo like a flame fairy. Had also seen the ancient fire soul before. There was also a sense of deja vu. Jojo looked at the ancient fire soul and said softly, "Little flame, how is young master now? Can you tell me?" "Huff. I was just too anxious." "You're just a flame. How can you speak?" Just as Jojo was laughing bitterly, the ancient fire soul began to speak. "Master is fine. He will recover in a few more days." "Huh." Jojo opened his eyes wide and stared at the ancient fire soul. His eyes glazed over. "You can speak?" The ancient fire soul also thought it was strange and said in shock, "Hey, why can I speak? I can talk now? I can actually speak. Oh my God. Thank you for your support." Chapter 2166. Foolish. Chapter 2166. Foolish. I can speak now? Holy SH *T. I can actually speak. The ancient fire soul was beating crazily. He didn't even know he could speak. The excitement was indescribable. Jojo also laughed softly, looking at this elf-like little naughty girl. He couldn't help but say, "Not only can you speak, your voice is also very pleasant to hear." She was like a soft little sister. The ancient fire soul was even happier. "Really? He. I am an ancient fire soul, so my voice must be nice to hear." Suddenly, the ancient fire soul's voice paused. Jojo looked at him and said, "What's wrong? Is something wrong with young master?" The ancient fire soul muttered, "Boss Long Fei is my master, but I can't talk to him. But you, Sister Jojo, why can I talk to you? And there seems to be something special attracting me to you. What is that?" Ancient fire soul. Fire ancestor. It was also the fire seed of the ancient world. He had been in this place for who knows how many years because he didn't even know a lot of things about himself. He didn't even know how to activate his own power. It was now the weakest and also the lowest. However, he was unable to communicate with Long Fei. If Jojo had not held Long Fei's hand, he would have been attracted by a strange energy, and he would not have known that he could communicate with humans and even talk to humans. Jojo was also startled for a bit, but at the same time, the ancient fire soul had a type of power that attracted her attention, as though she was one with the ancient fire soul. She did not think too much, because this was young Master Longfei's treasure, and just this point was enough. Girl. The ancient fire soul was confused and muttered, but even I can't communicate with other girls. Jojo said, don't think about it. What's the situation with young Master? The ancient fire soul is the young Master's treasure. No matter what, she will not take it. The ancient fire soul also retracted its head and said, he's fine, but... His voice dropped slightly. Jojo's heart was anxious as he asked, but what? The ancient fire soul said, Boss had exhausted himself too much. Last time, someone had given him a life change in order for him to survive. This time, he fainted for a few days. In the past few days, his cultivation had completely disappeared, just like a cripple whose cultivation has been crippled. If he were to use that move again, I'm afraid that he would become a cripple. I must not let him use the power of his blood essence again. The ancient fire soul's voice was very heavy. He could clearly feel the changes in Longfei's body. At the same time, he also knew the pain that Longfei had to endure. The pain. Estimated. No one could withstand it. Jojo's tears gushed out. He covered his mouth and did his best to not let himself cry out. He thought back to the god's martial continent, when his cultivation had been crippled, and now, this may also be the case. Her heart ached. Jojo knew clearly in his heart that it was impossible for Longfei to not use the power of his blood essence. She was too clear about Longfei's personality. And then, Jojo asked seriously, is there any way to alleviate the pain on his body or directly transfer the pain on his body to someone else and replace it with someone else? The ancient fire soul said, no one can endure the pain he suffers. It's too unbearable. The protector of the dragon coffin was the giant dragon awesome? However, in the face of the backlash of the ancient inheritance's power, he could only become ashes. Even so, she was still unable to endure all of Longfei's pain. If even a super giant dragon couldn't withstand it, then who in the 100,000 planes could? Jojo asked, tell me, is there such a method? The ancient fire soul said, there is, but even if there is, no one will be able to withstand it. Furthermore, if they cannot, there is a possibility that the boss will hurt himself. The moment he couldn't take it anymore, the power of the rebound would be multiplied multiple times over on Longfei's body. If that happened, he would not only become a trash with a crippled cultivation, but he would also die. However, Jojo's hands tensed up and then loosened and said, I can endure it. Help me. The ancient fire soul trembled slightly and said, Big Sister Jojo, you can't. In this world, in Jojo's heart, Longfei was the only one for him. She looked at Longfei's pain. She was willing to bear Longfei's pain herself, even if it meant increasing by 10 times. She was such a fool. Jojo said, help me. As long as you help me, next time I will tell young Master to keep you by my side. He really wanted to stay by Jojo's side. That feeling of being close with him made him feel very comfortable. Seeing him hesitate, Jojo stirred him up. If you don't agree, then forget it. While they were talking, Jojo immediately stood up and was about to leave the room. Ancient Fire Soul immediately replied, all right, I'll help you, but if you want me to help you, just tell boss that I'll stay by your side. Jojo revealed a smile, and then the ancient fire soul giggled and said, I need a drop of your blood essence. Half a quarter of an hour later, the red light in the room shook, causing the people outside to be slightly worried. Following that, everything in the room was back to normal. Jojo's blood essence was in a certain corner of Longfei's body. She smiled like a flower and said to herself, Young Master, I'm right in your body right now. Hee hee. He felt as if he had given everything to Longfei. He was as happy as a little girl. Jojo was very easily satisfied. even if Long Fei's words of concern could cause her heart to be filled with sweetness. Right now, when a drop of her blood essence was left in Long Fei's body, she felt as if she was in the whole world. Her face flushed. His smile was like the blossoming of a peach flower in spring. Looking at Long Fei's resolute face, the immaturity that he had in the god's martial countenance disappeared, and his face gained an additional hint of maturity, and his body started to exude the aura of a man. 100,000 planes. From the god's martial continent to the primordial divine war plane, Long Fei had grown up from a teenage boy to a man. Jojo looked at him, gathered his courage, and leaned his body forward slightly. He gave Long Fei's face a light peck, and his two large eyes flickered as they looked at Long Fei. And then her cheeks were bright red. Her face was blushing. Long Fei's brows slightly twitched. Jojo's body suddenly shrank like a child who had been caught stealing candy. He slightly shrank his neck, not daring to raise his head. After half a minute, after making sure that Long Fei had not woken up, Jojo finally relaxed his heart. He looked at the quiet Long Fei, and the corner of his mouth curled up, revealing a pair of shallow dimples. He laughed softly. Young master, Jojo knows that he's overthinking it, but Jojo is still willing to do anything for young master. Hee. Chapter 2167, The Need for New Powers. Chapter 2167, The Need for New Powers Battleground. Hong Tu raised his head and looked at the sky above Battleground. He had been constantly observing them these past few days. Mutated. What exactly is a mutation? Didn't Master say that a change is coming? What exactly was this so-called mutation? What is the great calamity that Long Fei cannot avoid? Hong Tu had been thinking about it these past few days and still couldn't understand it. However, thinking about his identity as an outer disciple of the god's tribe, he was excited for a few days. This identity was too powerful, and with this identity, he could travel the entire universal large world. God's tribe, the supreme existence in the universal large world. To the universal large world, the 100,000 people he controlled were nothing more than a speck of dust. To the universal large world, this was the same as the mortal world. In Hong Tu's eyes, the 100,000 people were ants, and in the eyes of the universal large world, people like him were only ants. In the 100,000 planes, the martial arts training's people were called warriors. Even if he was the controller of 100,000 planes, he was still just a martial artist. However, in the universal large world, those cultivators were called cultivators. He wanted to become a cultivator. He wanted to become a member of the universal large world, whom he had spent millions of years to fail to do so. As long as he could fulfill his master's orders, he would be able to reach the heavens in one step. What was even more exciting than becoming a cultivator was the god's tribe's outer disciples. Hong Tu's gaze receded slightly, then asked, Long Fei hasn't entered the battleground yet. A god of law immediately replied, Not yet, and I don't know what the hell he's doing. It's been 7 days, and I still haven't seen him enter the battleground. Lord God, should we kill our way into the Devil Island? The news of Long Fei's coma was completely sealed off. Even sovereigns didn't know. Hong Tu said slightly, No need, I'll wait for him at battleground. The god continued, Then, do you want to set another trap for him? Hong Tu said, No need. Only a change would happen in the battleground, and this was also the place where Long Fei would face a great calamity. What he needed to do now was not to find Long Fei, but to wait. When the change begins, Long Fei will naturally appear. The deity slightly lowered his head. Although he was puzzled, he did not dare to ask. Hong Tu looked to the sky. Once again, Devil Island. Huff. Long Fei exhaled a deep breath. He felt as if he had slept for a very long time, but his body felt incomparably comfortable. Just as he was about to get up, he realized that there was a person lying on his pillow. Jojo. At this moment, Jojo hugged onto Long Fei's arm tightly, traces of saliva hanging from the corner of his mouth, as he muttered, "Young master, don't leave me. Young master, young master." 7 days. Jojo stayed by his side the whole time. His expression was haggard. It made Long Fei think of when he was in God's Martial Continent, and his heart ached slightly. Idiot! Then, Long Fei continued to lie down, and did not wake Jojo from his stupor. He was thinking about how to deal with Hong Tuesday. Sovereign Hong Tu is much stronger than the evil god, and also, my entire strength is being revealed in front of Hong Tu, and I want to kill him. Long Fei's forehead was locked tight. He had once fought against Hong Tu in the God's Mountain. The feeling it gave Long Fei was very strong, the kind that was bottomless. He was worried that even if he used pure blood stimulation process, he wouldn't be able to kill Hong Tuesday. Huff! Long Fei muttered to himself. Although Battleground's victory can overthrow main temples, the prerequisite is that he has to kill the sovereign, but his strength, it was completely unshakable. Can I become even stronger? Long Fei checked his own strength. Ming Clan's mark, dragon-shaped mark. Other than these two energies, he did not know what else had the power to fight against Hong Tuesday. As for the blasting fist, it was completely useless to Hong Tuesday. Soul-severing blade. No way. Seal of Evil King. No way. The strength of gobbledygook I have never cultivated before, so I am simply unable to release the power of a gobbledygook. Long Fei searched through everything. He couldn't find any way to kill Hong Tuesday. As for the system, other than the reward that his level was not high enough for him to draw, there was also the reward of the previous upgrade, the Eternal Wheel. This item had always been hanging around his neck like a necklace, and he had no idea what it was used for. And then again, parasitic spell, level *10, evolution. It was the same for him. If his level wasn't high enough, he wouldn't be able to cultivate it. What on earth is the solution? Is there any way to activate the ancient inheritance's power from the dragon-shaped mark? Long Fei felt the dragon-shaped mark on his right arm. The imprint was completely silent. There was no fluctuation of any power. Just like the gobbledygook, he did not know how to cultivate the power of ancient inheritance. Just like a closed door, Long Fei was unable to enter. Use the power of the darkness to deal with Hong Tu? No. Hong Tu was unfathomable, and furthermore, his hidden strength had already been exposed. If he wanted to fight against Hong Tu, he would need a new power, a strong power. Only a new power could make it hard for Hong Tu to guard against it. However, Long Fei was now at the highest level. It was simply too difficult to obtain new strength. How could one obtain new strength from the 100,000 planes that Hong Tu controlled? All of his power was within his grasp. This new power was too difficult. Long Fei's expression sank, and let out a long breath. Is there really no other way? Suddenly, when Long Fei saw the space ring, he was shocked. Arrogant God energy value. That's right. The arrogant God energy value must be hiding a powerful strength. If I can burst it out with the power of the dragon-shaped mark, I will definitely be able to defeat Hong Tuesday. But Long Fei's forehead was locked again. Until now, he still did not understand what kind of power the mad god's energy was, nor did he know how to unleash it. This was the thing that gave him the most headache. He opened up the system to check the attributes of the soul bead. Item: soul bead grade. Attribute: the only thing he needed to start with was the 350 points of energy values accumulated over this period of time. What's the use of energy values? There was no explanation. Long Fei was also unable to control the power of his arrogant god energy value. What exactly is the mad god's energy? Long Fei was a little agitated in his heart. His heart was moved as he asked, "Little sister, do you know?" The Sleeping Beauty shook her head and said, "I'm not sure." She was also very puzzled. Something even Sleeping Beauty doesn't know? Who else would know? Long Fei's eyes flashed with a ray of light and said excitedly, "Chinatown! He must know. Yes, he must know." Long Fei was excited for a moment, and with a slight flick of his body, he sat up. Jojo rubbed his eyes and woke up. Seeing that Long Fei had woken up, he immediately laughed and said, "Young master, you're awake?" Long Fei laughed lightly and said, "Is Chinatown in there? That's not right. He should be called Tang Renjie. Is he there?" Jojo was slightly taken aback and mumbled, "It seems I haven't seen him these days." In another place, in an independent space, Tang Renjie fell to the ground, blood trickling out from the corner of his mouth. In the distance, 3 men in black sneered, "The mortal king's disciple is only mediocre." The entire space around them trembled as an incomparable amount of power surged out. Tang Renjie's pupils contracted as his heart sank. His current strength could not even withstand one move. If the 3 of them joined forces, the chances of him surviving would be 0. He is an extradite. He had to extradite Long Fei to the universal large world. This was a mission given to him by his master, and he had to accomplish it. Hoo. Tang Renjie exhaled a few deep breaths. His eyes turned sinister as he steadied his horse. With a deep voice, he said, "Come. You overestimate yourself. You're courting death." From then on, the human king has no more disciples. 3 people attacked together. The scene was like an immortal performing a technique. This independent world was above 100,000 planes. 100,000 planes wouldn't be able to sense it. If someone saw this, they would definitely think it was a fight between 2 deities. If this battle were to take place in 100,000 planes, most likely more than half of the 100,000 planes had been destroyed and couldn't withstand their power at all. Tang Renjie bellowed heavily. The power in his entire body rumbled loudly as it formed streams of yellow astral energy to protect his entire body. At this moment, his fists moved, sinking and channeling his strength. One person was fine. However, if the 3 attacked together, Tang Renjie was not his match. The moment the 3 of them landed, boom, a loud sound echoed out. In a flash through the air, a figure dashed out. Tang Renjie's eyes flashed with a bright light. "You finally made it back. Otherwise, I would really have died here." The one who rushed out from the void wasn't anyone else, but the husky that he had been carrying on his shoulder all this time, the one who couldn't tolerate the soil and water. At this moment, the immense pressure in the air instantly dissipated. At the same time, the husky rushed to Tang Renjie's side. Boom! His entire body directly merged into Tang Renjie's body. And at this instant, the strength on Tang Renjie's body began to change earth-shattering. *CK, I have been stomped on by you for 7 days and 7 nights. I have remembered every punch and every palm strike in my heart. Now, I will return it to you all one time. The strength on Tang Renjie's body was like flames. It was as if the Super Saiyan had evolved. All the power in his body was boiling. Tang Renjie roared loudly. At the same time he roared, the strength of his 2 fists also soared one after another. His 2 fists automatically ignited. Flames, earthen, yellow flames. Boom! Tang Renjia's eyes suddenly combusted into two flames. After that, he glared at the three people who were falling and swept his right fist out. Human King's fist. Shwa! Space itself shattered. The flames crushed everything. The three Sky Realm assassins didn't have any time to fight back and were directly blown into the void. In the void, the three's bodies burned with the flames of the king's fist. At this moment, their eyes were unfocused, and fear rose in their hearts. Human King punch, human King punch, human King punch. Lord Hierarch, save us. Not waiting for them to finish. Bang, 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 bang. Countless fist shadows exploded on their bodies, launching a crazy critical strike. One cannot die. One's fist cannot be destroyed. Unbreakable soul, indestructible fist. If the primordial spirit does not die, the fist will not be destroyed. One punch became a king. This was the human king's fist. The three assassins were swept into the void, and there was only one result left for them: death. Huff! Tang Renjia also let out a heavy breath as he sat down on the ground with an extremely pale face. That husky also separated out from his body and disdainfully said, "Every time, you always need me to save you." Tang Renjia flicked Husky's forehead and said, "You still have the nerve to say that?" "Right. How's the progress of the task I assigned to you?" The Husky replied, "Yes, it's done. The change is about to begin. Right now, as long as Long Fei enters the battleground, the change will occur. Right now, I'm just worried that Long Fei won't be able to hold on." Tang Renjia locked his eyebrows and said faintly, "We have already done everything we could. This is his world. He should be the one to bear everything. He should be able to take it. He was just an extradition person. He was unable to help Long Fei. Even if he dodged this next calamity, the next one would be even more powerful. The only thing he could rely on was Long Fei himself." Hoo. Tang Renjia panted heavily as he complained, "The Sky Region assassins do have some skills. Old dog, since I'm already injured like this, shouldn't you at least hump me for a bit?" Husky rolled his eyes and said with disdain, "You're thinking too much, aren't you?" Moreover, after he finished speaking, he jumped onto Tang Renjia's shoulder and said disdainfully, "Who can kill you? To be killed in front of me. Do you not wish to continue staying here?" Tang Renjia felt extremely bitter. "Thank you for your support." Chapter 2169. A sentence doing Chapter 2169. A sentence doing wild god energy? Never heard of it. Tang Renjia appeared in Devil Island. He had some things he wanted to tell Long Fei, but before he could ask, Long Fei had already asked him that first. Wild god energy? Tang Renjia had really never heard of it. Even in the universal large world S, there was no such power. Long Fei sighed in his heart. The Sleeping Beauty doesn't know, and Tang Renjia doesn't either. It seems like it will be very difficult for me to find out what kind of power the arrogant god energy value is. He wanted to use a new power to contend against Hong Tuesday. After all, the #1 boss in the 100,000 dimensions, Hong Tu was simply too strong. If Long Fei wanted to defeat him, he would need even stronger strength. Seeing Long Fei mutter to himself for a while, the husky on his shoulder pushed him a little, and Tang Renjia opened his mouth to ask. Not waiting for him to speak, Long Fei took another step forward and asked, "Did you get beaten up by someone?" Tang Renjia was startled. His face was bruised, and his clothes were torn in several places. He looked very miserable. Tang Renjia replied, "I'm fine." Long Fei said, "Aren't you very powerful? Who can beat you like this?" "Why don't you tell me, and I'll help you settle it?" Tang Renjia thought, "Can you solve this?" The Heaven Realm assassins were invincible in this world, even stronger than sovereigns. How could Long Fei kill them? Tang Renjie replied, I'm fine, Boss Long. Right now we are at the final stage. There are some things I need to tell you. Long Fei was not interested and said, if there's anything you want to say, just say it. His mind was still on the arrogant god energy value, so he did not know what this thing could be used for. Without waiting for Tang Renjie to speak, Long Fei turned around and asked, it has 300 points of energy now. Does it need to gather all of them to 1,000 before they can explode? Tang Renjie trembled, unable to understand a single word. Seeing Long Fei's distracted look, Tang Renjie also became anxious. She pulled Long Fei and said, Boss Long, can you listen to what I have to say seriously? Long Fei looked at Tang Renjie and said, go ahead. She instantly became serious. Tang Renjie was not used to it. He was stunned for a few seconds and was unable to say a single word. Long Fei said, I told you to say it and not say it. Let me say it. Suddenly, the husky on Tang Renjie's shoulder suddenly opened his mouth to speak. Long Fei was shocked. Husky can still speak. Husky rolled his eyes at Long Fei, but didn't bother to bullshit with him, and went straight to the point. The next time you enter Battleground, the mutation will start, which means that your calamity will appear. No one knows what kind of calamity it is, but God's tribe will definitely take action. All you have to do is endure. You will only have a slim chance of survival if you can withstand this tribulation. Otherwise, everything that you have done would have been in vain, and not only you but your Dragon Manor, your mother's Mu Clan S, will all pay a heavy price because of your failure. Understood. He spoke very quickly. After Husky finished speaking, the surrounding people all quietened down. Yen Nantian muttered, does a dog know how to speak? And he said it so well, so nimble. Husky glared. Yen Nantian slightly shrank. Husky looked at Long Fei seriously once more and said, do you understand now? Long Fei nodded and said, I understand. What you mean is that I must endure this calamity, otherwise everyone will be troubled. Tang Renjie said, that's roughly what it means. Long Fei said indifferently, I understand. Looking at Long Fei's calm expression, there was not the slightest ripple. Tang Renjie and Husky both looked at each other. Husky could not help but ask, do you really know, or just faked? Do you know what this calamity will mean to you? Long Fei was too calm. At a time like this, he should be a bit nervous. After all, if he lost, the Long residence and the Mu clan would suffer even more severe losses. Not only them, even the powers associated with them would be suppressed by the gods' tribe. Long Fei was their last hope. If he failed, the consequences were unimaginable. Long Fei casually asked, what does that mean? Husky was enraged by Long Fei's casual attitude. He stared at Long Fei and asked, do you know how much the Dragon Manor has paid for you? Do you know how much Mu Clan has done for you? Do you know that your every action and movement will determine the fate of several ancient family S? Did you know that half an hour ago, Tang Renjie was almost killed by the outer space powerhouse? Do you know how many outer space powerhouses are staring at the ancient inheritance on your body? Do you know? Husky said heavily. There was a trace of anger, and a sense of disappointment. However, Long Fei still casually said, I don't know why. Poochie. Husky was dumbstruck. His body trembled as if he had suffered 1,000,000 points of critical damage. He almost lost his balance and vomited blood. Long Fei looked at his furious expression and said truthfully, what I said was the truth. I didn't know it was because I don't know it. What's wrong? He appeared calm on the surface. Long Fei's heart surged with emotions. He did not know the price that the Long residents had paid for him, nor did he know what the Mu clan had paid. He did not care what exactly this mysterious Tang Renjie was doing here. He only cared about one thing, how to F asterisk asterisk K, Hong to death. As for what tribulation it was, what price it was, or whatever it was, he did not take it to heart. Husky could not hold it in and spat out a mouthful of blood. Long Fei was so angry that he vomited blood. Tang Renjie looked at Long Fei and said, Long Fei, in short, you must hold it back. You must be careful. Remember, once you enter the battleground again, the changes will begin. Finished. Tang Renjie turned around and chased after Husky, saying, Old dog, wait for me. After the two of them left, everyone gathered around. Jojo could not help but ask, Young master, what exactly is a change? Yen Nantian asked, Is it related to that whatever calamity? He said that when you enter the battleground, the change will start. You're not going in, are you? As long as we can defend the Devil Island. Ba Wanghua said worriedly. Long Fei smiled faintly and said, There aren't any changes and there aren't any disasters that I, Long Fei, cannot handle. Everyone, prepare yourselves to enter the battleground to fight to the death 3 days later. They don't know. However, Long Fei knew clearly in his heart that he had been through a calamity since the time he was in Chaos Realm. His father, his mother, had always wanted to help him escape this calamity, but had never succeeded. This was a calamity. There was no way for him to dodge it. Again, if the number 1 boss in 100,000 planes wasn't killed, how could this game be cleared? If he did not overthrow the main temple, how would Long Fei be able to control this world? 1 sentence. That's it. Chapter 2170, Beginning of Mutations. Chapter 2170, Beginning of Mutations on Vanity Deity's side. Vanity Deity was very dissatisfied that extradition person did not die after the Sky Region assassin was killed. However, he didn't send any more Sky Realm killers. He was just a small steward. To be exact, he was only an outer disciple of the Gods tribe, and the reason he had sent out the Sky Region assassin was because of his master. To him, losing 3 assassins was already unforgivable. If he were to die again, if that happened, he would be doomed forever. Moreover, now that Long Fei was dead, what could the extradition person extradite? Even if Long Fei doesn't die, when the time came, he would take action himself. If he couldn't deal with the Mortal King, then could not he deal with the disciple of the Mortal King? 3 days. In the blink of an eye, everyone in Devil Island was preparing. Everyone used the last bit of their time to become stronger, especially Jojo. She wanted to share more of the burden for Long Fei. There were several times when Ancient Fire Soul asked Jojo to tell him about himself, but Jojo did not, because the Ancient Fire Soul would at least have a little more security by Long Fei's side. Long Fei was also unceasingly cultivating for 3 days, trying to think of ways to increase his own strength in order to find new strength to resist Hong Tuesday. However, still nothing. However, in the past few days, through constant hunting and killing of sea monsters, the Soul Bead's Mad God energy had increased by another 100 points, nearing 500 points. However, there was still no reaction from the Wild God energy. In the plaza, Long Fei looked at the great army that was preparing to take action and said with a heavy voice, This may be our last battle, and we might die inside. Right now, there's someone who is in a hurry to leave. Is there? The entire hall was silent. Not a single sound could be heard. They were filled with hope for Long Fei and the rest, for someone to be able to kill the powerhouse evil god, who was at the peak of 100,000 planes. What reason did they have to not believe? Moreover, everyone had a hint of hope in their hearts. As long as they could defeat the main temple and kill Hong too, they were the gods that controlled this world. At that time, they would be placed in the divine class and would be immortal for all eternity. Wasn't this what they were looking for? All right, I won't say too much. In short, we will go in and fight. As long as you win the right to control 100,000 planes, you will be placed in the divine class and be immortal for all eternity. Long Fei let out a heavy roar. All the people in the plaza shouted in unison, "Myriad immortals, myriad immortals." Then, Long Fei activated his ancient entry. Charge! Yen Nantian waved his sword and took the lead to rush in. At the same time, Long Fei moved and sent a sound transmission to Li Yuanba. You can begin over there. 8 King Kong was already in place, waiting for Long Fei's order. In the air, the main temple floated silently, standing in 8 different locations. It was just like the location of a gossip. At this moment, the power from their bodies started to surge as they released different kinds of power bit by bit. Battleground. Hong Tu did not act like the evil god last time and surrounded Long Fei's entrance. This time, the army of the main temple was waiting quietly on a huge plain. 120 God of Law stood proudly in the air. Hong Tu sat on the sovereign's throne, supporting himself with one hand as he looked at the sky and entrance. Buzz. Rumble. Ancient entry opened. A deity immediately reported, "My lord, they've arrived." The sovereign's eyes flashed with a brilliant light. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a look of excitement. "Long Fei, you've finally appeared." At the same time, he looked up at the sky. There was no change in the sky, but the entire battleground trembled slightly. Is this the beginning of the change? Hong Tu muttered to himself, but he did not sense any special energy entering his body. Long Fei flew out from the ancient entry. His eyes couldn't help but look towards the sky, yet he didn't discover anything amiss as he stared at the gigantic plain in the distance. They were all densely packed in the main temple army. Their numbers were several times greater. After all, they were the main temple-s, a master who controlled 100,000 planes. So long as they were able to earn even more merits in this battle, they would similarly be rewarded with a sovereign's reward, the divine seal. He was in the divine class. Infinite undying. Planes war, right? Long Fei stood in the air and said with a slight smile, "Dragon clan." The colorful fairy dragon trembled. "Here," Long Fei said, "dragons are beasts, charge from the front." Giant clan, the extreme abyss demon clan, is the 2nd tier. The others are in the 3rd tier. Triangular attack. Remember, you must keep your formation. Long Fei said heavily. This time, we are not competing in terms of cultivation, but in terms of speed, in order to maximize your speed. Huh. Everyone shouted. And then, Long Fei ordered, "Charge!" The army surged out like a raging tide, using the terrain below the hill to attack and fully implement Long Fei's tactics. The dragon race was the first to open a path to death. Hong Tu's finger moved slightly and said faintly, "Attack!" They don't need tactics. There was no need for any arrangements, because their number was several times that of Long Fei, and also they still had 120 God of Law-s. More importantly, Hong Tu did not even put these people's lives in his eyes. His target was Long Fei. Rumble! There was a loud sound in the sky. Dark clouds rolled, thunder rumbled, and lightning raged in all directions. Just a second ago, the sky was still clear, but this second had suddenly changed. The two armies charged forward like rolling black clouds. Hong Tu's eyes turned sinister. Has the change begun? Long Fei was also shocked in his heart. He had always remembered the words of Tang Renjia and the husky. The sky changed. He thought that a change had occurred. However, he was not restricted in the slightest. He roared angrily in his heart. "If you don't want to live, then do it. At most, I'll just die. Even if I die, I will go to heaven. Kill. Long Fei forgot about any change or calamity and rushed out. With the soul blade in one hand, he unleashed a black blade chi and directly sent dozens of people from the vanguard of the main temple army flying. At the same time, the colorful fairy dragon's huge body collided. Boom, boom, boom. With a loud boom, a large part of the colorful fairy dragon was knocked over. As if tearing an opening, Long Fei's army crazily rushed into the heart of the main temple's army. At this moment, the battle began. Hong Tu remained seated on his divine throne, his eyes calm. Seeing Long Fei's army slaughter their way through, S army was forced to retreat step by step. He had no expression on his face. It doesn't matter. In his eyes, the lives of these people were nothing more than ants. Moreover, the appearance of the battleground was in itself a god's playground, a god's game. Both death and life were chosen by them. Hong Tu's attention was always on Long Fei. He was waiting. Suddenly, rain poured down, and the dark clouds in the sky turned blood red. And the rain was blood red. Blood rain. Above the clouds, 7 blood red full moons appeared. Hong Tu's eyes shook. It's begun. Chapter 2171, 7 Luminaries Blood Moon. Chapter 2171, 7 Luminaries Blood Moon, 7 Bloody Moons. The light was like the sun shining down. The entire battleground was covered in blood. In addition to the rain of blood, the entire battleground was covered in a scarlet color, as if it was a bloody purgatory. Seeing such a terrifying scene, everyone on the battlefield stopped and raised their heads to look at the sky. 7 blood red moons. What is this? The sky is blood, the earth is blood, and the entire plane of power is blood. What exactly happened? Panic. The scene was too terrifying. Many people began to tremble with fear as they began to continuously retreat. Whether it was Long Fei's army or the people from the main temple, both of them were afraid. Jojo's eyes shook, and he immediately said, "Young master." Looking around, everyone was panicking, and there was no sign of Long Fei at all. Jojo became even more anxious and shouted loudly, "Young master, young master, young master." Yen Nantian, and the others also started to look for him. Boss. Long Fei. Long Fei. They also did not see Long Fei. The 7 bloody moons were abnormally malevolent. Was this the beginning of the change? God Hong Tu looked at the 7 blood moons in the sky. He too did not know what this meant and had never seen this kind of strange phenomenon. However, some people knew. Within the void, the expression in Vanity Deity's eyes trembled as he said in shock, "Young master, could it be that these 7 rounds of blood moons are—" That's right. It was as if he didn't have the courage to say those words. The young man was similarly shocked, and his fists couldn't help but secretly clench. In his eyes, besides shock, there was also a trace of jealousy and disdain. He clenched his teeth and relaxed slightly. It's the 7 Luminaries blood moon. Vanity Deity's body started to tremble, and his lips started to tremble. He stuttered, 7 Luminaries blood moon. This. What? Why did it appear on his body? Could it be that the ancient inheritance on his body is even more? He didn't say the last word, strong, so he didn't dare to say it out loud. Emperor Xian, God's tribe Jizun. The ancient inheritance in his body was unrivaled. Back then, he had relied on the inherited power in his body to suppress the entire Ming clan and also drive the Ming clan out of the universal world. The ancient inheritance on his body was the strongest power produced in the ancient world. Heavens! Every time an ancient inheritance appeared, it would go through countless calamities in order to sublimate itself, allowing the power of the ancient inheritance to be released bit by bit. Of course. The premise is that you have to bear with it. The tribulations that Emperor Xian had experienced back then were also extremely dangerous. The number of thousands of tribulations, every single one of them was incomparably dangerous. Even after experiencing countless tribulations, there had never been a 7 luminaries blood moon like this one before. This was a calamity from the legends of the ancient world, a catastrophe that did not exist at all. However, and now, he had appeared within a small planar battlefield. The young man slightly narrowed his eyes. An extremely cold killing intent burst out from his cold and gloomy eyes. Vanity Deity's heart went cold. When he felt the killing intent radiating from the man, he felt as if his body was continuously shrinking, and his mind was about to shatter, as if he couldn't withstand it any longer. It stopped for a moment. The young man coldly said, "He must die, 7 luminaries blood moon." The fact that there was a change during teleportation also meant that the power of the ancient inheritance on Long Fei's body was extremely strong. He had to get it. Vanity Deity nodded heavily and said, "Understood." And then, with a flash in the air, he disappeared from the void. Just like Tang Renjie, he was unable to enter the battleground, but as Long Fei was killed, it was equivalent to Long Fei being trapped in 100,000 dimensions. There was no extradition, so Long Fei couldn't go out. Tang Renjie had been dealt with. It would be much easier to kill Long Fei now. 7 luminaries blood moon. It's actually the 7 luminaries blood moon. On a cliff, Tang Renjie's eyes shone with excitement. Ha ha! It's actually the 7 luminaries blood moon. If this matter were to spread to the universal world, the entire world would probably be shaken. Ha! God's tribe. Let's see how long you can last. Even if your Emperor Xian has experienced 10,000 tribulations, it has never been 7 luminaries blood moon. And Boss Long's first tribulation is already the 7 luminaries blood moon. Can you even compare to that? As expected, the ancient prophecy is indeed correct. The strongest ancient inheritance has appeared. Ha ha ha. Husky was also excited. He started to feel anger towards Long Fei for being a disappointment to him, but now that he had calmed down, he realized that he had gone too far. No one could do what Long Fei did. Husky slightly said, "If it's the 7 luminaries blood moon, I'm afraid Long Fei won't live past a day." The influence of the 7 luminaries blood moon was too terrifying. If this matter were to be found out by the upper echelons of the God's tribe, I am afraid Long Fei would be killed before he could even enter the universal world. And the expression in the Husky's eyes tightened and said, "The calamity at the 7 luminaries blood moon, the calamity risk factor has reached its highest point." Tang Renjie's heart sank as well. He couldn't help but be worried. The stronger the mutation, the greater the calamity. This kind of change had never happened before. No one knew how dangerous it was and couldn't provide any information. Tang Renjie muttered, "This will depend on himself. He should be able to endure it. Every single ancient inheritance has its own reasons. Long Fei is different from the others. He will definitely be able to do it." No one could guarantee it. Tang Renjie could only say some comforting words to himself. And then Tang Renjie said, "Since it's the 7 luminaries blood moon, we have never encountered it before, so we can't go against it either. We should prepare in advance." Husky nodded heavily. Battleground. Long Fei. The instant the 7 luminaries blood moon appeared, a burning pain appeared on Long Fei's right arm, and this pain instantly spread to his entire body. At the same time, it also caused the Sleeping Beauty to wake up. 7 luminaries blood moon. The Sleeping Beauty was extremely shocked. Long Fei asked, "What's 7 luminaries blood moon?" the Sleeping Beauty said. The sun, moon, gold, wood, water, fire, earth is the 7 planets, and the blood moon is the killing. The 7 planets can also be said to be the 9 planets. This kind of mutation only exists in legends. To think that it would actually appear. Master, the mutation will start in a few minutes. You have to bear a lot of pain, and it is very possible that he will die. The Sleeping Beauty said worriedly. This time, she was really worried. The 7 luminaries' blood moon had exceeded her expectations. It was beyond everyone's expectations. Whether it was Long Shanting or Mu Wanner, everyone was expecting it. Similarly, it was also because of Long Shanting that Mu Wanner wanted to change his fate and let Long Fei escape from this calamity. It was also because of this that the calamity that Long Fei had to endure became even stronger. Thus, the appearance of the 7 luminaries' blood moon. Long Fei was not afraid of tribulation. The only thing that Long Fei was worried about was that while he was undergoing his tribulation, Hong Tu would kill his people crazily. So, before that, he had to defeat the sovereign. Immediately, Long Fei asked, "How many minutes do I have left?" The Sleeping Beauty said, "About 3 minutes." "All right, I want to kill Hong Tu first. Thank you for your support." Chapter 2172, The Power of the Sovereign. Chapter 2172, The Power of the Sovereign. Long Fei had to endure this calamity alone, but if Hong Tu doesn't die, then everyone around him will die. Thus, Long Fei actually dared to kill Hong Tu before the calamity had descended. When the 7 luminaries' blood moon appeared, the Sleeping Beauty immediately told him the approximate time of the calamity, and at that time, his figure also disappeared. The people of the main temple's army were all looking at the 7 bloody moons in the sky. He didn't notice that Long Fei had disappeared. 3 minutes. I only have 3 minutes. The evil god possesses 10 billion HP. As the number 1 boss of the 100,000 plane, Hong Tu's health is at least more than 15 billion. Long Fei calculated in his heart and then secretly clicked his tongue. 15 billion experience. To finish within 3 minutes was no doubt an impossible task. However, Long Fei didn't have a choice. Blood moon. There are still 7 of them. It's really a mutation. Hong Tu smiled faintly and said, "It looks like I don't even need to do anything. You probably won't be able to withstand the tribulation, right?" Long Fei. While they were talking, Hong Tu's gaze suddenly darkened. He suddenly turned around and stared behind him. Suddenly, Long Fei rushed out from the void. Others might not have noticed Long Fei, but Hong Tu was paying attention to him at all times. And furthermore, even if Long Fei was hiding in the air, he could still sense his cultivation. In front of him, Long Fei was an existence that could hide anything. Long Fei rushed out from midair and immediately turned around with a cold smile. "You want to sneak an attack? You're too inexperienced." Indeed, Long Fei wanted to launch a sneak attack, but Hong Tu's reaction exceeded his expectations. Hong Tu's day. It was much more powerful than he had imagined. And then Long Fei moved his right hand. A dark energy flashed out from the dragon-shaped mark, and it suddenly moved. Power of the shadows. A mass of black fog emerged. Hong Tu slightly narrowed his eyes, and the corner of his mouth hooked up. "You want to seal my strength? Ha ha ha. Long Fei, with just you?" While speaking, Hong Tu's figure fiercely exploded out, his robes producing explosive sounds. The hand that was hidden inside his sleeves suddenly flipped, and a gold light shot out explosively. Boom! Hong Tu bellowed, and a strong golden light immediately enveloped the power of the darkness. This golden light was like a seal. The power of the shadows could not move at all. The power of darkness failed. All of Long Fei's holy power value had been used up, but right now he was not worried about the holy power value at all. Raising his head to consume a few divine level medicinal pellets, his holy power value had quickly risen back to 100 million. F***CK. Long Fei cursed in his heart. Hong Tu laughed in disdain. Everything about you is under my control. You want to kill me? You want to overthrow the main temple that I control? Long Fei, you are far from being able to do it. Ha ha ha. I have long given you a chance. I wonder if you would treasure it. Fight with me. You can fight me? What qualifications do you have? Just based on the mob you gathered? Humph. Just these trash. Hong Tu sneered. He stared at Long Fei coldly, then turned his right hand. Following his move, a huge wave of power rushed out like a tide. It instantly crushed the entire battle plains. Bam, 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 bang, 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 bang. One after another, the warrior was smashed into a kneeling position. Even though they had main artifacts in their hands, they were still crushed. His knees shattered. His cultivation was being suppressed. Some of those with lower cultivations would bleed to death from being crushed. One move. He had crushed tens of thousands of troops. Moreover, to put it simply, he didn't have much strength. This was the sovereign Hong Tu. This was the power to control 100,000 planes. An incomparably valiant existence. Yen Nantian was struggling to hold on. Blood hung from the corner of Bawang Hua's mouth. The colorful fairy dragon gasped. The faces of the giant clans and the Deep Abyss Mountains demon clan members all turned pale. Although they did not kneel down, they could not release any of their strength. A god of law roared out, "Kill them all! Kill them all! Kill!" The great army of the main temple, who were still in shock from the 7 luminaries' blood moon, all shook as they heard the law god's furious roar. They all pounced at the same time, like a tsunami. Immediately, Long Fei's army fell down crazily like they were cutting grass. Under the pressure of the Lord God's might, they had no way of resisting and could only be slaughtered. Long Fei, don't worry about us. Yen Nantian roared. Holding his sword tightly, he rushed forward. Yi Jingyun, Bawang Hua, Gold Robe Master, Zhang Sanqian. They all rushed forward with their lives on the line. Long Fei saw this, and his heart sank. Hong Tu said coldly, "What are you using to fight with me? I'm telling you, this is a world that I control. I am the king, I am the sky. Do you think you can overturn the heavens?" Both of Hong Tu's eyes stared angrily as he looked at the power of the ancient code that was twined around Long Fei's body. His eyes turned sinister as he lifted up his right hand's 5 fingers and clenched them tightly. Receive all 130 types of the ancient code power. Shwa! A stream of power of law collapsed out of Long Fei's body. Next, another one. Another. Following that, it was extremely fast and was completely outside of Long Fei's control. One after another, the power of the ancient code was sucked back by Hong Tu, causing him to be unable to control it completely. These powers of the ancient code were all released by Long Fei one after another. Logically speaking, this should be his own power. But not really, was the ruler of 100,000 planes. Before the battleground could defeat the main temple, all of the power of law was still in Hong Tu's hands. He is the king of laws. Unless you can take over the battleground, Hong Tu will always be the controller of the laws. Watching Long Fei's every move, the main temple's god of law-s were all excited. Ha ha ha! Long Fei, you're crazy. You dog, continue being arrogant. A trash who climbed up from the lower realms actually dared to challenge our main temple. Come on, Another one more arrogant. Ha ha ha. You must be a dead dog now. He let out a heavy sigh. They had been stomped by Long Fei before, but now the power of the ancient code in Long Fei's body had been extracted. The time laws were drawn out. The killing principle was drawn out. The magic rule was drawn out. The system kept beeping. Finally, the halo of the ancient code had completely disappeared and returned to Hong Tu's palm, spinning into a ball of light using the power of the ancient code. Hong Tu laughed and said, Long Fei, accept your fate. You will never be able to defeat me in your entire life because you cannot defeat the heavens. Good heavens! It was not him, but the sky Hong Tu spoke of was God's tribe. He had said that his master had listened to him. However, his master's attention was currently not on him, but the young man smiled faintly, expressing his satisfaction. His God's tribe was the heavens. Who could fight against him? No one. However, no matter if it was the heavens or the earth, Long Fei was the one who wanted to mess with him. Chapter 2173, 10 Essence and Blood. Chapter 2173, 10 Essence and Blood. So what if it was the heavens? So what if he was a sovereign? To provoke this father, even if I die, I will kill your entire family. After the power of the ancient code was separated, Long Fei didn't care in the slightest because he did not need to rely on the power of the ancient code to deal with Hong Tuesday. He could deal with the god of law, but against Hong Tu, the power of law was completely useless. You are the heavens, undefeatable. Today, I will defeat one of them. Suddenly, Long Fei's brows twitched, and 10 essence and blood rushed out. 10 fingers. A drop of blood essence floated above each of his fingers. The sleeping beauty immediately said, Master, are you crazy? It can't be like this. Stop, you can't do this. No. Hong Tu's eyes became sinister and said, Pure blood stimulation process? Long Fei, can you change to a new move? Such a move. It's useless to me. A golden light flashed. A ray of golden light enveloped Hong Tuesday. It was also at this time. Jojo looked up at Long Fei, who was in the sky, and laughed blandly. Then she turned around and walked towards the exit of the ancient era. His speed was extremely fast. He didn't look back. When the ancient fire soul felt Jojo leaving, it directly came out of Long Fei's body and shouted crazily, Boss, don't ever use the pure blood stimulation process. Sister Jojo will die. Don't. However, no matter how much it yelled, it was useless. Long Fei couldn't hear what he was saying at all. In this world, only Jojo could hear what she said. Even if Long Fei was her master, he would still not hear it. Long Fei did not know that Jojo had left a drop of blood essence in his body, nor did he know what happened while he was unconscious. Seeing the ancient fire soul jumping in front of him as if it was extremely anxious, Long Fei laughed lightly. Don't worry, I'll be fine. He thought the ancient fire soul was worried about him. The ancient fire soul was still madly jumping and roaring hysterically. Don't, boss, I'm begging you, don't use the pure blood stimulation process. Don't use so much at once. Sister Jojo will die. I'm begging you. However, no matter how she shouted, no matter how Long Fei jumped, he could not hear what the ancient fire soul was saying. Long Fei said, Don't worry. He was going all out. Long Fei could not find a way to kill Hong Tu, nor could he find any power that could deal with him. Pure blood stimulation process was his only choice. One drop was not enough. It was not enough to kill a single drop of Hong Tuesday. Then 10 drops. The 10 essence and blood had forcefully stimulated the power of the ancient inheritance in the dragon-shaped mark, so as long as the power of the inheritance was to be released by a bit, he would be able to kill Hong Tuesday. At this time, this was the only way. Time passed by second. The 7 luminaries' blood moon in the sky became more and more scarlet, and Long Fei could already feel the condensed power within the 7 luminaries' blood moon begin to move strangely. He was very clear in his heart. The strange movement of power within the blood moon was the beginning of his calamity. He had to kill Hong Tu before then. He had to. Even if he had to sacrifice his life, he had to kill Hong Tu first. If Hong Tu did not die, then everyone around him would become like what happened in the Chaos Realm. Long Fei absolutely could not let that scene occur again. Absolutely not. Therefore, Long Fei ignored everything else. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The 7 luminaries' blood moon began to emit a rumbling sound. Ba Wanghua shouted loudly, "Long Fei, don't worry about us. Boss, don't worry about us." At the same time, beneath the main temple, 8 King Kong's power started to burst out like a beam of light. Buzz. Buzz. Intense buzzing sounds rang out in the air, and everything in the surroundings began to tremble. Boom. 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 8 violent sounds broke through the horizon, forming a pillar of light, directly piercing through the plane of the main temple. 8 heaven pillar, just like 8 gigantic nails. They ruthlessly pierced through the plane of the main temple. Next, the plane of the main temple began to crack and crack. The plane of the main temple began to split apart, and the newly rebuilt sovereign's palace instantly collapsed into rubble. The huge statues of the God of Law crumbled one after another. The strength of 8 heaven pillar S was too strong. He was going to destroy an entire plane. In other words, a planet was directly destroyed. This power, the cow was a mess. Main temple collapsed as the statue of the god collapsed. Inside the battleground, the God of Law began trembling uncontrollably. What happened? What happened? Our deity root. Our deity root has cracked. Main temple. Lord God, someone is destroying main temple. Our God roots are collapsing. The faces of the 120-odd God of Law S turned pale. All of them fell into a state of extreme panic. What did the deity root mean to them? This meant that they had a very strong foundation. If a God of Law did not even have a deity root, their death wouldn't be too far off. Hong Tu also felt it. His eyes trembled as he stared at Long Fei and said, "Your 8 King Kong." Only now did he realize that Long Fei's 8 King Kong did not appear. It was also because he had placed all his attention on Long Fei that he had neglected the 8 King Kong. But it was too late. The main temple had already collapsed. The God of Law's divine root had also collapsed. And what was more, even his cultivation was affected. This caused his host divine might to loosen. Yen Nantian gasped for breath. The main artifact in his hand slashed down, killing a panicking law god. With a roar, he shouted, "Go back and kill him. Kill." He began to retaliate madly. From the start of the battle, many people died and fell. The soul bead on Long Fei's body had never heard of it before and had been continuously absorbing, while the wild god's energy also continuously increased. Whether it was the people from the main temple or his people, as long as they died, they could absorb the arrogant god energy value. Long Fei did not care so much. Now, his attention was still on the pure blood stimulation process. At the exit, Jojo turned around and glanced at Long Fei. With a smile on his face, he muttered, "Young master, you have to stay alive and sound." He. Then, he walked out of the battleground and returned to the Devil Island. She did not want Long Fei to worry. She did not want Long Fei to find out, because she was afraid that it would affect Long Fei. From the moment she came to the Long family, she had been following behind Long Fei in fear, like a follower. From the moment she displayed the power of a phoenix blood vein in the imperial palace, Long Fei had been her everything from the moment he entered her heart at such a young age. She was willing to give up everything. He would never regret it, even if he died. The ancient fire soul was still jumping crazily. Long Fei no longer said anything. The main temple was destroyed. This was when Sovereign Hong Tu was at her weakest. Long Fei moved his fingers. Dragon-shaped mark, ancient power. Activate for me. Chapter 2174. The God of Heaven is crushed like a dead dog. Chapter 2174. The God of Heaven is crushed like a dead dog. No. The ancient fire soul cried out, "Don't!" Long Fei stopped, but Long Fei's heart actually trembled a little. Doubt rose in his heart. In the past, when he used the pure blood stimulation process, there would be an intense side effect of his body. However, not this time. Could it be that he released the power of the ancient inheritance? He broke through his shackles? Long Fei was overjoyed. He thought so much every day, because at this moment, the power in his body was like a berserk sea swirling out from his body like a hurricane. It was incomparably fierce. A single drop of blood essence was enough to make the power of the ancient inheritance become incomparably strong, and its power even surpassed Long Fei's control. Because he was too strong. This time, Long Fei crazily fused the 10 essence and blood into the dragon-shaped mark. What is this? Crazy? Crazy? Long Fei was like a madman. He started laughing maniacally and said, "It doesn't matter if you're the heavens or if you're a god. Today, this daddy will trample you beneath his feet." Boom. His voice was filled with thunderous might. Pressure was a type of energy. The higher the cultivation, the stronger the energy emitted from the body. In other words, pressure that could not be seen with the naked eye. However, as Long Fei spoke, the might exuded from his body could be seen with the naked eye, as though numerous void demons had appeared one after another and were heavily suppressing them. Hong Tu didn't have time to do any defense. The golden shield on his body shattered. Moreover, at this moment, his body sank, and he directly knelt down in midair, descending at a speed similar to a bolt of lightning. Rumble! It tore through the air and knelt down heavily. A massive mountain peak was blasted to smithereens on its knees. His knees had been shattered, and all the bones in his body had been shattered into fine powder. He was a sovereign, and this little bit of damage was not enough to kill him. However, this was just the bit of pressure Long Fei was releasing when he spoke. With just that little bit of pressure, the sovereign who controlled 100,000 planes was crushed to the point of him kneeling on the ground, as though he had been crushed into dust. How strong was this? Even the strong Long Fei himself was a little confused. At this moment, the entire battleground quietened down. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the Long Fei, who was enveloped by an incomparably enormous force in the sky. He had never seen the aura of power on Long Fei's body before. He had never seen such a powerful force. Awesome! Ha ha ha! The boss is mighty. The boss is domineering. Ha ha ha! Too powerful. Brother Fei, I want to give birth to your child. Ha ha ha! The main temple is amazing. Is a law god that great? The sovereigns who controlled 100,000 planes were incredible. Isn't that the same as kneeling in front of our boss? Did you just call our boss arrogant? Now that you're arrogant, what the F ** K can you do about it? He let out a heavy sigh. His aura exploded. Yen Nantian, and the others were too excited. A wave of pressure had already suppressed Hong Tu to the point of him kneeling on the ground. Just how powerful was this? Too awesome. It felt indescribably good. Many people thought that they were seeing things. They frantically rubbed their eyes, and they were about to go blind, but nothing in front of them had changed. The sovereign was still kneeling on the ground, kneeling at Long Fei's feet. His hair was disheveled, and he looked to be in an extremely sorry state. This was the first time. They had never seen a sovereign in such a sorry state before, not even 10 million years ago in the war for hegemony. However, now, their hearts began to spasm. It wasn't because they felt pain in their hearts, but because once a sovereign knelt down, they could imagine what would happen to them. Immediately, a large group of people began to frantically flee. The sovereign was crushed to the point of kneeling, the main temple army crumbling. Hong Tu was their mental support. If he kneeled down, how could he not collapse? Hong Tu, feeling good. Long Fei's voice was heavy, with many stresses, as though he was a devil. At this moment, the ancient fire soul was still jumping around in front of Long Fei, jumping even more. Long Fei laughed. Ancient fire soul, aren't you excited too? Ha ha ha. This feeling of having explosive power is too great. Long Fei said heavily, as if he had control over the entire universe. Cluck, cluck, cluck. Hong Tu's joints exploded, his voice was gloomy, and in the end he roared, Long Fei. He stood up abruptly. All the bones in his body were restored in an instant. It shot up into the sky like a rocket. The immense force formed a ball that could be seen with the naked eye, striking it. Long Fei squinted his eyes and coldly shouted, You King, kneel down for this daddy. He moved. He raised his right leg into a whip. Following that, with that heavy blow, the power released by Hong Tu shattered. It did not give Long Fei the slightest resistance, and the soles of his feet struck the top of Hong Tu's head. Hong Tu's body sank. Walala! He heavily kneeled down, once again, completely unable to withstand Long Fei's strength. Rumble! The earth moaned violently once again. A huge crater was formed on the ground by the explosion. It was like a huge meteorite had just passed. The area with a radius of 10 kilometers caved in and was filled with cracks and fissures. The sovereign kneeled down heavily in the middle of the crater. His face was pale. Black blood gushed out wildly. That was coercion just now, but this time it was the strength of a single kick. This isn't real. This isn't real. Illusion, this is definitely an illusion. It's impossible, impossible. It is impossible for a sovereign to be crushed. No one in 100,000 planes is capable of crushing a sovereign. What did I see? My God! If the army led by the main temple had been in a panic and fled, then the generals under the command of the God of Heaven would have felt as if they had seen a ghost now. The first time was carelessness. Then, the second time, this was a clash of power. The sovereign had also used all of his strength, but he was easily smashed to the ground by Long Fei's kick. Kneel on the ground again. What did this mean? This meant the sovereign was not a match for Long Fei at all. The god of law as continuously retreated, and after that they fled as if their lives depended on it. Next, the sovereign army was completely fleeing. Yen Nantian bellowed, Don't let any of you go. All of you will die. Everyone reacted and began to chase crazily. The soul bead was also crazily absorbing the arrogant god energy value. What kind of power do you have? Hong Tu's hair was in disarray. His eyes were raised. His fists were clenched tightly. He was unwilling, extremely unwilling. He was the king of this world. Everyone was going to kneel down to him. Without waiting for Long Fei to speak, Hong Tu roared, Long Fei, I want you dead. Boom. Die your ass. Without waiting for Hong Tu to soar into the sky, he was kicked down by Long Fei again and knelt on the ground once more. They charged again. He was blasted to his knees. Several times in a row, Long Fei firmly crushed them. Moreover, it was as easy as crushing a 3-year-old child. Long Fei laughed coldly. You are Tian? You are a king? Now, you are a dead dog. I said it before. I will trample everything under my feet, including the heavens. And then Long Fei stared at the last bit of HP on Hong Tu's head and said solemnly, "Explode for me. Thank you for your support." Chapter 2175, Powerhouse of God's Tribe Attacks. Chapter 2175, Powerhouse of God's Tribe Attacks. The last bit of HP, explode him. The strong power that was released from the dragon-shaped mark struck down heavily. Everyone looked at the sky. Long Fei's strength seemed to be ignited as it surged towards Hong Tuesday. Ha ha ha. He's dead for sure. So what if you are a sovereign? If you act arrogantly in front of our boss, you will only have one ending, and that is death. Ha ha ha. We won. Ha ha ha. We're going to win. The 100,000 planes is ours now. We will be the rulers of this world. Ha ha ha. Everyone laughed excitedly. Now, the main temple's army had been scattered. They were only one step away from success. Once Hong Tu died, they won. He would become the overlord of this world. Everyone raised their heads, their eyes filled with respect. This was a historic moment, and no one would miss this moment. This scene would forever be recorded in the annals of history. Hong Tu raised his head, heavily, looking extremely miserable. Seeing Long Fei's crashing down, he could not resist anymore, and all the strength in his body was not his opponent. However, Hong Tu was unwilling to accept this, and furthermore, he used all his strength to shout, "Master, save me!" At this moment, the more the powerhouse, the more afraid he would be when he was at the brink of death. Hong Tu's heart was filled with fear, and he shouted loudly for help. "Master, please save me. Master, Master." Long Fei was slightly taken aback. "Master? Sovereigns and masters. 100,000 planes. Could it be? Is Hong Tu's master really the #1 boss?" Long Fei revealed an excited expression and laughed wildly. "It's useless even if I called your father over." Hong Tu shouted for help with all his might. Vanity Deity did not have any response. Hong Tu's eyes were unfocused as his body trembled. "Long Fei, don't kill me. I beg you. I lost. I admit defeat. I beg you, don't kill me." Vanity Deity ignored him and started begging for mercy. "Begging for mercy? Do you think I'll let you go, this big boss?" Long Fei's voice shook. In that instant, with a burst of strength, he crushed down heavily. Die. At the same time, in another place, in the void, the young man said coldly, "Trash." A strange energy faintly moved from his body and instantly rushed into the battleground. And at the same time, it was also sucked into the 7 luminaries' blood moon. At the same time, the young man's figure followed him, disappeared on the spot. Boom. Long Fei's power exploded. The power of the 7 luminaries' blood moon exploded in an instant as well, as it released a scarlet wave of light that covered the entire battleground and wantonly surged as it hummed. A calamity had descended. Long Fei's heart sank as well. Fortunately, at least God Hong Tu will die. If that's the case, no one will hurt them. When Long Fei's power struck down, after a few seconds, he didn't hear any system beep-s. The system did not sound out a notification sound, which meant Hong Tu did not die. Impossible. Impossible, Long Fei said as his brows tightened. There's only a little bit of his blood left, and he can't even withstand my pressure. There's no way he wouldn't die from the earlier move. Its HP was only a few thousand points. Could instantly kill someone of this level with just this amount of blood. It was impossible for Hong Tu to not die, unless Long Fei's earlier strength did not reach Hong Tu's body. But he had clearly felt it. When the power had heavily smashed down earlier, it had directly crushed into powder half a meter away from Hong Tu's weight. Suddenly, Long Fei's gaze darkened as a figure descended from the sky like a bolt of lightning into his mind. That shadow, Buzz. It was also at this moment that the power dissipated and dust fell. Not far in front of Long Fei stood a young man dressed in white. His face was ice cold and his eyes revealed disdain. An aura that Long Fei could not understand was being given off. He was sure. This kind of aura did not belong to any of the powerhouses in the 100,000 planes. Outer space powerhouse. Hong Tu's master? Behind the young man, Hong Tu hugged his head with both hands. Realizing that he was not dead, his heart relaxed, and when he saw the young man's figure, his expression changed greatly. He knelt down and kowtowed. He knocked his head against the ground, not daring to raise his head. His entire body was trembling. He was even more frightened than a mouse who saw a cat. Long Fei's heart trembled, and could not help but ask, "Who are you?" If the young man didn't have a golden glow around his body, then he wasn't a boss. Or could it be? Long Fei's level was too low. She simply could not reach that level. The young man laughed coldly and said, "Who I am isn't important. What's important is, you're going to die soon." Long Fei's body faintly moved. With a flip of his right hand, a wave of power was released like a shock wave, blasting towards the man. The young man did not move. The shock wave that Long Fei released landed half a meter away in front of him. And then it automatically disappeared. It didn't even make a single collision and directly disappeared. Long Fei was shocked. Strong. Extremely strong. Looking back at Hong Tu's shivering body, Long Fei asked softly, "You're his master?" The young man lightly said, "What kind of thing is his master?" While they were talking, the young man looked at the 7 luminaries' blood moon that was constantly changing in the sky and continuously releasing scarlet light waves. The corners of his mouth slightly curled up and his eyes narrowed. He could not help but clench his fists tightly as he muttered to himself, "It's still brewing, it's still resisting." Her voice was low and cold. It was filled with rage. He was extremely unhappy. How could a lowly person like him get such a calamity in the middle of teleportation? And it was not only this. Why was it still brewing after such a calamity had arrived? Still getting stronger? This was what he was unhappy about. His body similarly possessed the power of the ancient inheritance, but his calamity was completely incomparable to this 7 luminaries' blood moon. He was jealous, extremely jealous. Long Fei said, "Then get out of my way." The young man's gaze turned sinister. The cold glint in his eyes was like a sharp, cold sword. Shwa! Long Fei's body sank. The boundless pressure blasted directly into his mind. "Bend your legs. I can't take it." One had to know that he still had the power from the dragon blood seal, but yet it couldn't stop the pressure from the man's body. How strong was this? The young man coldly shouted, "Kneel!" Buzz. The voice was like a thunderclap that the battleground realm could not endure and started to crack in all directions. A surge of pressure smashed through a region of space, causing it to crack apart. This power, too terrifying. Long Fei endured it with all his might, but when the 10 essence and blood stimulated the strongest power of the dragon blood seal, the ancient fire soul was still beating crazily. Gritting her teeth, Long Fei straightened his body even more. "Neil? Who the fuck are you?" The young man took a slight step forward. At this moment, the power of the 7 luminaries' blood moon descended like a laser beam. Chapter 2176. Head beheaded, system isolated. Chapter 2176. Head beheaded, system isolated. Buzz. Buzz. The 7 laser beams heavily descended. It was as if 7 gigantic pillars of light had landed in front of Long Fei and directly surrounded him. Rumble. Boom. 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 The 7 pillars of light formed an enormous formation. The scarlet light waves formed a net, trapping Long Fei inside. At the instant the pillar of light descended, it caused the young man to really stagger backwards, and the vital energy and blood below his chest roiled. He forcefully endured it, and his face was slightly flushed. It was very uncomfortable. This made him even more unhappy. But Long Fei felt great. He looked at the surrounding dense net of scarlet light blocking him from everything. Moreover, even the pressure from the young man had been crushed. "Ha ha ha. Who the hell do you think you are for me to kneel down? Come if you dare. Come on," Long Fei said arrogantly. At the same time, his heart trembled as he didn't dare to rashly touch the light pillars. The young man did not go up again. He was very clear in his heart that it was impossible for him to get close to the 7 luminaries' blood moon with just his strength. He couldn't get close. Long Fei, who was inside, was even more incapable of getting close. The man laughed coldly. "Talking is useless, you dog. You can't endure the tribulation of the 7 luminaries' blood moon. Just wait inside obediently for your death." Humph! Buzz, buzz, buzz. It was also at this time the 7 bloody moons in the sky started falling down one by one, directly fusing into the pillar of light. The scarlet light was extremely dazzling. "Boss, what's that? Why did you tie Long Fei up? What is this?" Everyone panicked. Yan Nantian and many people rushed forward. The giant clan did not care that much. A warrior rushed forward and wanted to grab that pillar of light to pull it out, but the moment his hand touched the pillar of light, buzz! In the blink of an eye, his body had been reduced to smithereens. This wasn't an instant kill. This one kill was 1,000 times faster. It was impossible to see what was happening clearly. Everyone's expression changed drastically. A few more giant clan-s rushed forward and turned into fine powder in an instant as well. Long Fei immediately shouted, "Don't come over! Don't even come over!" The idea slightly moved. Boom! The moment the idea touched the light pillar, it was also immediately refined and turned into nothingness, so fast that Long Fei was startled. "Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha!" The young man disdainfully sneered. "A bunch of trash. They don't even know what a 7 luminaries' blood moon tribulation is. Forget about you trash. Even the powerhouse would not be able to get close to you." The man looked at Long Fei, who was in the middle of the light pillar, and said disdainfully, "What qualifications do you have to summon the 7 luminaries' blood moon? What qualifications do you have to go through such a tribulation?" Long Fei's eyes slightly narrowed, and said, "I can tell that you're jealous of me." The man laughed loudly and said, "I'm jealous of you? Would I be jealous of a dead person? Trash. If you are able to survive this tribulation, then let's talk about how jealous I am of you. It's about to begin." The man looked at the 7 pillars of light, which were becoming increasingly scarlet. Finally, it immediately turned into a scarlet cage, surrounding Long Fei tightly in the middle. And Long Fei felt as if she was trapped in a huge pool of blood. This feeling, I can't say. However, The power from the pillar of light continued to flow into his body. At the same time, the dragon-shaped Mark's power that was stimulated by the ten essence and blood slowly disappeared, causing Long Fei's heart to sink. Oh no, the side effects are going to erupt soon. Undetectable during use. However, after the pure blood stimulation process was used up, he could immediately feel it. Long Fei was secretly worried. At this time, the ancient fire soul was still jumping. Long Fei felt that it was very strange. Why are you constantly jumping? What's going on? Buzz, buzz, buzz. The blood-red light beam rose higher and higher until it reached the very top, as if it was filled with energy. And then they directly erupted as the power of the 7 pillars of light gathered. At one point, a gigantic blood-black hole appeared above Long Fei's head. The young man's eyes were incomparably sinister and excited as he said, "He's here, he's here, ha ha ha. The power of the 7 luminaries' blood moon is coming." Boom! In Long Fei's body, the stimulated strength had completely disappeared. Long Fei's body wasn't unaccustomed to it in the slightest. It could be said that he felt no pain, and his heart sank. Why is that? At this moment, the ancient fire soul's tiny body suddenly swelled up, and at this moment it transformed into a giant blue bird, letting out a miserable scream. He charged forward. The large blue bird penetrated everything, directly passing through the pillar of light. The sudden explosion caused the young man to shake violently. What is this? Undead bird. Long Fei was also baffled, but he had a bad feeling about this. The blue-colored big bird immediately charged into the sky, instantly charging towards the ancient exit. A voice sounded from the air. "Big Sister Jojo." Long Fei's face was filled with shock. "Jojo!" He didn't know what had happened, but his intuition told him that the reason the aftereffects of the pure blood stimulation process did not erupt right now was definitely because of Jojo. Long Fei started to worry and also stepped forward as he shouted out with a deep tone. All the energy in his body suddenly exploded as he said in a heavy tone, "Break for me." The ultimate boxing was released. Bang! There was no reaction from the pillar of light, not even a single ripple. Long Fei's strength was completely lacking. Ah! Long Fei held onto the light pillar with both of his hands as power crazily surged out. "Break for me." Still not. The young man laughed loudly. "Ha ha! You still don't understand. You simply don't understand. How can a trash like you break the power of the 7 luminaries' blood moon? He's really overestimating himself." Long Fei looked at Yen Nantian and asked, "Where's Jojo?" Yen Nantian looked around, but did not see any trace of Jojo. A warrior said, "I saw Sister Jojo leaving the battlefield." Long Fei immediately said, "Yen Nantian, quickly go and find Jojo." Yen Nantian also did not hesitate and immediately flew towards the ancient entry. The young man smiled coldly and said, "Do you still have the mood to care about your woman at this time? How can a person like you withstand the power of the ancient inheritance?" Huh! While they were talking, the young man looked at Hong Tu, who was still kneeling on the ground behind him, and said, "What are you standing there for? Kill them all." Hong Tu immediately stood up and said, "As you command." It was impossible to deal with Long Fei, but dealing with these people was as easy as cutting vegetables. Long Fei's face sank and said, "Hong Tu, you dare to touch even a single hair of theirs. I will definitely not forgive you." Hong Tu said coldly, "Long Fei, let's talk after you survive." And then his figure moved and immediately went to intercept and kill Yen Nantian. The young man looked at Long Fei and said, "Trash, look at the top of your head." Long Fei raised his head. Boom! The blood-colored black hole exploded and came crashing down from above. Moreover, it instantly cut Long Fei's body apart. The most important thing was Long Fei's head was chopped off. The system was isolated. Chapter 2177, Total Crash, Long Zhanting's Voice. Chapter 2177, Total Crash, Long Zhanting's voice. There was no sign. There was no hint. It suddenly descended. It instantly cut Long Fei's head off, and his body split into two. The people surrounding the pillar of light were all scared silly. Even the young man's expression became slightly cold. The tribulation of the 7 luminaries' blood moon is indeed extraordinary. The legendary calamity. No. Ba Wanghua's body instantly became paralyzed and fell onto the ground. Her face was as pale as paper, and seeing Long Fei's body split into two, she couldn't even cry. Everyone widened their eyes as they looked at what was happening within the pillar of light. Dragon! Boss, old. He couldn't even say a word. It was cut into 2 halves, head and body separated. Such a terrifying scene, not to mention himself. Even the onlookers were incomparably terrified. Boss! Yi Jingyun rushed forward. Boom! In the blink of an eye, his body was reduced to smithereens. Bai Lian clasped her hands together as she thought to herself before charging forward. Boom! His body was reduced to smithereens as well. It vanished in an instant. Many people cried out in fear. This was too terrifying, and they had never seen something so terrifying in their lives before. This was even more terrifying than death. Long Fei's army slowly retreated. All of them were stupefied. Long Fei was slashed into 2. Many generals rushed forward and killed him in an instant. They couldn't take it. It was as though his soul had been shattered. He couldn't withstand it at all. Everyone was trembling, and many people were shouting. This scene would forever be their nightmare. And at this time, the God of Law's army, who had escaped earlier, returned. Seeing Long Fei being slashed into 2, one of the God of Law shouted, "It's our turn! Kill them!" Kill! People from all directions started to fight back. They quickly dispersed. He continued to die. And then there was Long Fei. His body was chopped into 2 halves. Intense pain instantly spread throughout his entire body. At that moment, Long Fei felt that he was dead, but a few seconds later, he opened his eyes. He saw his body hovering on the other side. He himself was scared silly. His face was extremely pale. However, he was not dead. He could feel that he wasn't dead, not in this sense. The young man smiled coldly and said, "How does it feel to see your body split? It must be great, right?" Ha! This is only the beginning. Before he could finish, the bloody black hole that was slowly floating in the air suddenly dropped down. It was like a cutting machine. Boom! His body was sliced apart once again. This time, the other half of his body was sliced in half. All of his internal organs were cut off and spilled all over the ground. Long Fei was trembling. His sea of consciousness was shrinking rapidly. His brain went numb. Fear. He had died countless times in the world of Dragon Coffin. It could be said that he was not afraid of death at all, but he had never thought that this was the so-called calamity. Wasn't transcending tribulation supposed to be heavenly tribulation? What kind of calamity was this? Watching his body split apart bit by bit, watching his internal organs flow all over the floor, blood gushed out. This is not death. He was simply watching himself die. What could be more terrifying than watching your own death? Boom! Another heavy sound. This time, his body was sliced open again. This time, it was his head that split apart. His eyeballs were split in half, and his brain was burst open. Ha ha, ha ha ha, ha ha. The young man laughed sinisterly. No one can withstand such a tribulation, watching their bodies split apart and die. This feeling. Ha ha ha. Dragon Manor. Mu Clan. Ha ha ha. You didn't think of it yourself, did you? Your hopes are about to be dashed. The man was excited to this day, but at this moment, a black box appeared in his hands. It was exactly the same as the black box that Vanity Deity gave to Hong Tuesday. There was only one thing he needed to do right now. Wait. Before long, Long Fei would thoroughly die. In another place, the 8 King Kong had destroyed the entire main temple. Li Yuanba's mind tightened and said, "Boss is in danger." Then, 8 figures uniformly flew towards Devil Island. Devil Island. At a cliff, Jojo stood there quietly with her at the center. Within a 3-meter radius, she was completely covered in blood, and the corners of her clothes were dripping with blood. The scene was extremely ferocious, I'm afraid. She finally knew the pain Long Fei had to endure. It was exactly as the ancient fire soul said. She couldn't take it anymore. Above her head, a large blue flame bird was circling. A strange power was being emitted from her body. 100,000 planes at the very edge. Tang Renjia's chest was pierced through. Black blood continuously gushed out. His other hand was torn off, and only a white bone was left outside. Husky, more accurately speaking, it should be an enormous ancient beast. However, his entire body was now covered in wounds. His injuries were worse than Tang Renjia's. Huff, 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 huff. Tang Renjia gasped for breath, his eyes staring not far away. Vanity Deity coldly said, "It's not good to learn, but who can you extradite to when you have to learn to be an extradition person?" Humph. The mortal king's disciple is only SOSO. The Vanity Deity sneered. The person you want to extradite should be dead soon. How could you all have thought that it would be the calamity of the 7 luminaries' blood moon? Do you think that the Dragon Manor and the Mu clan would be able to fight against the gods' tribe? What qualifications do they have? Vanity Deity was extremely disdainful. The supreme existence of the gods' tribe, unrivaled. Tang Renjia killing 3 Sky Region assassins made him lose face in front of his master, which made him very unhappy. Crack. Tang Renjia stood up again, stared at Vanity Deity, and said, "He is someone above the heavens and is destined to step your god's tribe under his feet. Extradition is the glory of my life. I will no regret. 1, cut, finish, succeed, lead, cross. Even if, gamble with my life." Tang Renjia enunciated every single word with incomparable firmness. Then, Tang Renjia's entire body suddenly exploded. Vanity Deity's expression secretly changed. Soul explosion? Ha ha ha. Tang Renjia laughed out loud and said, "I shall let you experience what it means to be the disciple of the human king." Battleground. It could be said that Long Fei's body was already smashed into pieces, and that happened right under his nose. His heart was filled with fear. He felt that death was slowly approaching. He had thought that he was already prepared, that he wouldn't be afraid of any tribulations, but the appearance of the 7 luminaries' blood moon was completely out of his expectations. He couldn't bear it. He watched as the people outside the pillar of light fell and died, thinking about the pain that Jojo had to bear for himself. Long Fei's heart felt even more miserable. He was about to give up. He really was going to give up. Right at this moment, a voice sounded in the air. "Long Fei, fearless heart." The young man's eyes turned sinister. He suddenly stared at a certain direction and laughed coldly. "Long Zhanting." Thank you for your support. Chapter 2178, Fearless Heart. Chapter 2178, Fearless Heart. Long Fei really couldn't hold on any longer. The scariest thing in the world was death, but what was scarier than death was watching yourself die. The feeling of being slowly sliced to pieces, slowly dying. That feeling was something even Long Fei himself couldn't say, as his brain was about to explode. However, he didn't even have a brain now. His brain was crushed into a pulp. The most important thing was that he could not even sense the system, so he did not know if it was crushed or isolated. All in all, he could see no hope. In the light pillar of the 7 luminaries' blood moon, he was truly too weak. Once a person lost their confidence, the moment they lost hope, they would become withered and downcast. This was how Long Fei felt right now. Yi Jingyun fell. The 108 giant clans fell one after another. Their huge bodies stepped on ruthlessly beneath their feet. Their limbs were cut off, and fresh blood surged like spring water. They watched as the dragons, led by the colorful fairy dragon, were hunted everywhere. And when he thought about how Jojo had to bear the consequences of his pain for him, Long Fei's heart sank even deeper. It was extremely uncomfortable. Recalling the scene at the Chaos Realm, Long Fei roared hysterically. Why? Why? Don't tell me I'm really a heaven destroyer, a lone star. Will everyone around me die because of me? Do I really have to be alone? Why? Ah! Long Fei was screaming, and his heart was also collapsing. If it's really like this, then let me bear everything by myself, let me die alone. His heart had collapsed. Long Fei's life was about to end. Just as Long Fei was about to give up, a voice came out. Father's voice. Long Fei, fearless heart. At the same time, the young man looked up into the sky and laughed coldly. Long Shanting, King of Hell, Long Shanting. Long Fei's mind trembled. He raised his eyes and looked into the sky. At this moment, he had met the idea, and his body had been crushed to pieces, leaving only the shadow of the idea behind. He raised his head and looked at his father as if he was grabbing onto a lifesaver. Father, save me. The desire to live exploded out. Long Fei didn't want to die. He didn't want to die so vainly, to be killed by some bullshit 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering. He really didn't want to die. Ha ha ha. The young man laughed out loud and said, Save you? You're thinking too much, aren't you? If he dares to appear, I'll kill him too. With that, the young man's voice became gloomy. The former dragon lord, the current stray dog, Long Shanting, if you have the guts, come out. Long Shanting did not appear. He ignored the young man's provocation. Long Fei, no one can save you, and no one can help you either. Do you still remember the fearless heart I mentioned? Long Fei, fearless, fearless. Nothing in this world can harm you, fearless heart. Long Shanting said, leisurely. Although his tone was calm, Long Shanting's heart was in extreme pain. Seeing Long Fei's body become like this, seeing his own son being treated like this, as his father, his heart ached for everyone. He wished that he could bear everything on Long Fei's behalf. However, he couldn't replace it. Moreover, this was Long Fei's own path. He couldn't change it either. The power of the ancient inheritance was indeed very strong, but it was also very difficult. Nothing in this world is natural. Nothing can be achieved without effort. The stronger they were, the more things you can bear. The stronger they were, the more responsibility Long Fei had, the greater it was on him. Long Shanting, save your son? Come out for me? You, the homeless dog who was kicked out of the Long residence. After looking for so many years, I didn't expect you to hide here and protect your son. However, he's dead today, You won't be able to protect him." The young man laughed. At the same time, his idea was constantly searching. He wanted to find Long Zhanting's location. If he could kill all of Long Zhanting's weapons, it would be a great merit to him, at least to the higher-ups of the gods' tribe. He needed Long Fei's life. Life was needed to increase his influence. Just as the young man was saying these things, Long Zhanting's voice was slightly angered, and he shouted loudly, "You little rascal, don't continue beeping nonstop." The young man's face burned with anger as he shouted, "Long Zhanting, you old dog." Not waiting for him to finish, the sky suddenly split open. A golden sword descended. The young man's face darkened. Sky sword. Boom! Without giving him any chance to react, a powerful force caused the young man to lie flat on the ground. His 4 limbs couldn't move, his face was pale, and blood continuously flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He had been instantly crushed. This power, terrifying to the extreme. When Long Fei entered the Chaos Realm, he did not see his father make any moves. Strong. Too strong. The young man was extremely displeased, but he was unable to move. Long Zhanting coldly snorted and said, "Call me again." Long Zhanting did not place the man in his eyes at all. He was only venting the anger in his heart, and was not in a good mood. Then, Long Zhanting looked at Long Fei in the 7 glorious blood prison. He did not know if Long Fei could endure it, nor did he know what Long Fei could become like. He was Long Fei's father, and was willing to risk everything to protect his son, saying, "Long Fei, fearless heart, isn't afraid of anything. Remember, you are Long Fei." Long Fei looked into the sky and muttered, "Fearless heart, fearless heart." This was something that many people had told him before. Fearless heart. What exactly is a fearless heart? Long Fei didn't know this from the start, but now, he still did not understand what a fearless heart was, but he understood one thing now. That was, as long as he can endure it, as long as he can, he wouldn't die. None of these fearless heart matters. The important thing was he saw hope. It was also at this time. Suddenly, a strong light burst out from the young man's body, and a golden talisman exploded. A golden light soared to the sky as the man let out a loud roar. It was like the roar of a lion. Rumble! The entire world shook violently. The young man suddenly stood up, holding onto the sky sword that had penetrated his body. He said sinisterly, "Long Zhanting, who the fuck are you? Crush your father? You think you're worthy?" Little by little, he pulled the sky sword out of his body and slashed at the air. "Die!" The sky sword erupted. A sword light slashed out, piercing through a plane and shooting straight into the sky. The cracks in the sky slowly closed. Long Zhanting's voice disappeared. Dead. Chapter 2179, Sky Sword. Chapter 2179, Sky Sword Crack Healing. Long Zhanting's voice disappeared. The young man held the sky sword. After a few seconds, the young man laughed heartily. "Woo, woo, 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 woo. Long Zhanting, continue being arrogant. You think that an old dog like you is qualified to be arrogant in front of me? Come again. Even Sky Sword cannot be taken back." Pride. He was extremely pleased with himself. Looking at the sky sword in his hand, he felt even more proud. Moreover, it was one of the 3 great treasures of the Dragon Manor. In the universal large world, this sky sword was ranked 7th on the weapon ranking list. How powerful was this sword? It was unimaginably strong. However, Long Zhanting didn't even take back his sword before escaping. Ha ha ha. The young man laughed out loud once again. He placed the sword in front of him and started showing off. "Kid, did you see that? That good-for-nothing father of yours doesn't even dare to take back his sword. This is a Dragon Manor treasure. A father with trash. A son with trash. A father with trash. Ha ha ha. The young man continued to laugh complacently, even though a sword had pierced through his body. In Long Fei's eyes, the amount of blood that remained on his head was only a third. This was a serious injury. However, the young man was still excited. Even if they had to pay a terrible price, it would be worth it if they could get their hands on the Sky Sword. This trip was the right one. Sky Sword, when you combine the power of ancient inheritance on your body and the power of ancient inheritance on my body, TSK, 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 I'm about to go up to the sky. The young man was so excited that he looked slightly sinister, abandoned his sword and fled. Indeed, it was very embarrassing. However, was Long Zhanting trying to escape? The golden talisman that erupted from the young man's body was able to make him flee, maybe in the eyes of others, but in Long Fei's eyes it was not. The people of the Long family would definitely not flee in the face of such a situation, even if it meant death. They would also not throw away their weapons to escape. So Long Fei did not even need to think to know what his father meant. This Sky Sword, it's for him. At the same time, Long Zhanting was also motivating and stimulating Long Fei. The 7 Glorious Blood Prison. The boss in front of him had died. Otherwise, the Long family's treasure would fall into someone else's hands. Long Fei's intentions were clear to Long Fei as he silently said in his heart, "Father, I will definitely endure it. I definitely will." Long Fei's heart sank. With a heavy roar, he said, "Come, let the tempest come strike harder. If I can't take it, I'll be your grandson." Ah! A thunderous roar. The 7 Glorious Blood Prison's power seemed to be enraged as it rained down like a torrential storm. The scarlet energy in the 7 blood crescent light pillars surged even more. Long Fei's idea were also heavily affected, and he could feel intense pain every time their powers struck him. The scene of his own body being sliced once again appeared before his eyes. The impact it had on his mind was enormous. However, Long Fei blocked with all his might. Both of his eyes were filled with determination. The young man did not care whether Long Fei could survive, because even if he did not die in the 7 Glorious Blood Prison, he would still die in his hands. Right now, he was fiddling with the Sky Sword. Looking at this sword that was almost the same size as an ordinary sword, he was filled with joy. Sky Sword, ha ha. Did he laugh proudly? In another place, Tang Renjia's entire body was bound up with the vanity deity, and he laughed deeply. "How is the mortal king's disciple?" Vanity deity's face changed as he said angrily, "Brat, are you crazy? You will die too." Soul Blast, using his own soul as the source of power, urging it to use the power for the rest of his life. This kind of power carried with it an extremely powerful destructive force. At least, Vanity Deity's current cultivation could not handle it. Hatch's eyes narrowed. The two of them were not Vanity Deity's match. And now that they were in a critical moment, if Tang Renjia did not detonate his soul, they would not be able to extradite Long Fei. So what if I die? Don't you know that the mortal king's disciples are never afraid of death? Ha ha ha. Tang Renjia was extremely insane. Extradition Long Fei was his mission. Similarly, this was also his calamity. This was also the reason why they chose to become the extradition person. He would give anything to accomplish this task. He turned around and looked at Husky, smiled slightly, and said, "Old dog, goodbye." Husky did not say anything. He did not know what to say. Vanity Deity panicked and used all of his strength to try and struggle free from Tang Renjia, but he just could not. "Brat, let me go, let me go, let me go." Rumble! A powerful burst of power erupted forth. A dull sound exploded. The gigantic husky roared towards the sky. "Ah, Tang Renjia disappeared. The vanity deity also disappeared. Tears rolled down Husky's face. However, he did not stop. The mission was not completed yet. Moreover, it was very, very difficult. He had to use his own strength to open the extradition channel, and it would be very difficult to open it. But he did not hesitate. It wasn't because of Long Fei. It was because of Tang Renjia. His relationship with Tang Renjia was not his mount and master, but brothers. He was once a wild dog brought back by the human king. Tang Renjia had been picked up by the human king when he was still an infant, and thus the two of them slowly grew up together. The two of them were like brothers. Now that Tang Renjia had sacrificed his life for him, he knew clearly in his heart that this was Tang Renjia's calamity. His eyes darkened. Husky took a step forward. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions could be heard, a total of 8 of them. 8 King Kong appeared on the Devil Island. How is the boss? King Kong, did you see something? Say something. Aoya was incomparably frantic, and her heart was filled with worry as well. Li Yuanba frowned. In the past, he always had a silly and innocent look, but now his expression was very serious. Li Yuanba shook his head slightly. I don't know. Boss is in battleground. We'll go in immediately. At this moment, the sky spirit's gaze moved as it looked towards another direction. In the sky, a huge blue flaming bird was circling. At the same time, he also felt a familiar aura, and after a slight movement, he said, "It's Sister Jojo." And also, his aura is weak, as if he suffered a heavy injury. Jojo. Everyone was shocked. Didn't she always follow by his side? Why are you heavily injured? Is that the bluebird beast? Immediately, Aoya said, "You guys go in first. I'll go take a look. I'll come over shortly." "Be careful," Li Yuanba said, and immediately rushed through the entrance. The other 6 people followed. Aoya's figure moved. She landed on the cliff in half a breath's time. At this moment, she was completely stunned by what she saw, looking at the densely packed blood traces around Jojo. Her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. This, just what kind of pain is this? Chapter 2180, soon. Chapter 2180, soon. It was a shocking sight, impossible to put into words. Aoya was stunned on the spot. The blue flaming bird in the sky kept screeching. Jojo felt that there was someone behind her, so she turned around with difficulty. Seeing that it was Aoya, she relaxed a little. She didn't want Long Fei to see her like this. She felt so ugly. Aoya took a step forward. "Sister Jojo, you, what's wrong?" Even though she was shocked, she was still unable to speak. Jojo smiled lightly. She didn't say it, but the blue-colored firebird in the sky said, instead, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have promised her. I shouldn't have planted her blood essence in Long Fei's body and made her suffer the after effects of Long Fei's blood essence's stimulation. It's all my fault. It's all my fault." The big blue bird was crying. He was like a little girl who had done something wrong. She was the ancient fire soul. When she felt that Jojo's life was at stake, she gave it her all. In that instant, she had evolved too. However, Jojo shook his head lightly and said, "It has nothing to do with you. Don't blame yourself. This is my own choice, and I'm willing to bear all the pain for young master." Aoya's heart became even more shocked. All of the frightening images in front of him were the pain he had to endure for Long Fei. How much did she love him? At this moment, Aoya's heart ached slightly. Can I do it? Can I give so much for a single person? She liked Long Fei very much, but her love seemed so unbearable in front of Jojo. There was no comparison at all. Aoya said, "Don't say anything. I'll bring you back." Jojo smiled faintly and said, "It's no use. My heart veins are broken, and my sea of consciousness is also broken." The smile was still beautiful. At this moment, Jojo's body was in incomparable pain. Even speaking used all of his strength. Aoya's heart sunk once again, and tears couldn't stop flowing out as she said, "That won't happen. Long Fei will definitely have a way. Big Sister Jojo, Long Fei will definitely have a way to save you." "No, no, no. Don't let the young master see me like this. He will be sad. I don't like to see him sad. I will feel sorry for him." Jojo said weakly. Even if she died, the one she would think of in her heart would be Long Fei. Aoya took another step forward and said, "That won't do. I don't care. I must get him to save you." Jojo said anxiously, "Sister Aoya, listen to me. Right now, young master needs your help very much. Your 8 King Kong is his strongest shield. Go quickly. If you're too late, it'll be too late. I can do it alone. Okay?" She was aware of her situation. She was dying. Aoya's tears could not be stopped. Looking at the expression in Jojo's eyes, she slowly retreated. Jojo smiled lightly and said, "Tell young master, thank you for bringing me a completely different world." He chuckled softly, revealing 2 shallow dimples. Her smile was like a pear blossom after a rain. It was breathtakingly beautiful. Oya turned and ran. A few seconds in the sky, the ancient fire's soul let out a mournful cry. "Big Sister Jojo." You couldn't hold it in, and suddenly cried out loud. However, she didn't turn around. She didn't know how to turn around. Tears flowed down her face. He stepped into the battleground. Cousin, can you help me? Take me to the universal world. I want to serve young master once more. Can you help me? I really want to stay by young master's side again. I really want to. Jojo's voice slowly disappeared. The ancient fire soul let out a mournful cry. Phoenix rebirth. Every single time was incomparably bitter, and each time was even more painful than the last. The ancient fire soul looked at Jojo, who was slowly collapsing, and its blue flames fiercely rushed out, as if a heavenly fire had exploded. It muttered, "Big Sister Jojo, I'll bring you to the universal world. I will give it my all." Blue flames engulfed Jojo's body. Flames burned the horizon. Battleground. Kill them all. Ha ha ha. Long Fei is dead now. All of you go to hell as well. Kill. Ha ha ha. Under the leadership of the sovereign, the army led by Long Fei fell one after the other. They died in despair. Long Fei's death made them feel despair. Would he still be able to live after his body had been cut so badly? Hong Tu was exceptionally fierce. He was crazily venting the anger in his heart. The young man looked at Long Fei, who was inside the 7 glorious blood prison, and said with a smile, "Do you see that? Your men are going to die out soon, and you're going to lose your life soon as well." Long Fei said, "Don't worry, if I don't kill you, I will not die." Ha ha ha. Kill me? It's the funniest joke I've ever heard. The young man played with the sky sword and said, "Even your useless father was crushed by me and fled like a dead dog. You think you can kill me? Too funny. Did you see that sky sword, one of the 3 great treasures of your long family? How are you doing now?" "It's in my hands." The young man was incomparably complacent. Long Fei said indifferently, "This is my sword." Pucci, ha ha ha. The young man laughed again and said, "Your sword? Then come and get it." Long Fei said, "Don't worry, I don't usually like taking them. I prefer to explode." The young man disdainfully said, "Trash, you Not worthy. The corners of Long Fei's eyes turned sinister as he said, "Let's see who's the trash." Soon, Long Fei could clearly feel the power of the 7 luminaries' blood moon weakening, even though he did not know what the 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering had given him, and what was important now was that he was about to succeed in his tribulation. At this moment, rumble! Battleground suddenly let out a loud noise, and he rushed in, watching the distant Long Fei being tied up by the 7 glorious blood prison. The giant spirit axe in Li Yuanba's hands trembled. A god of law rushed forward and chopped down with his blade. However, Li Yuanba did not even look at him, and cleaved down with his axe. "Those who touch my boss die." Boom! One of the god of law's was instantly killed. The law god killed him in one move. The flames of fury were burning on Li Yuanba's body. The other 6 were the same. "Mother of asterisk Kerr, if you dare to touch our boss, I will kill you as well." The fat Menchun was enraged. Her huge body immediately turned into a huge round ball and smashed out. The black knife split a god of law into half with a single slash. Its body rushed forward and flew up. King Kong was enraged, unstoppable. In the distance, the young man laughed coldly. "It seems like your helper is here." "Rumor. They are the 8 pillars of ancient world. I have never been there, but to be a pillar, you have to be aware of being a pillar." The man's eyes were filled with killing intent. Long Fei's phantasm shouted loudly, "Don't come over here! Don't come over here! Go! Hurry up and leave this place." The 7 of them did not hear him. Even if he heard them, he wouldn't leave. He charged forward with all his might. At this time, Ao Yo also rushed into battleground. Hong Tu said sinisterly, "All the 8 King Kong are here. We must die today. Thank you for your support." Chapter 2181, Fully Indestructible. Chapter 2181. Fully indestructible, the appearance of the 8 King Kong was extremely shocking. All 8 of them were formidable existences. However, not only did they have to face a law god, a sovereign, but also an indescribable outer space powerhouse. An opponent, without waiting for them to approach, Long Fei shouted loudly, "Don't come over. All of you leave this place. Don't come over here." The young man sneered and said, "Kill him. These 8 must die as well." Others may not know about the 8 King Kong, but he was very clear that the 8 gigantic heaven pillar in the ancient world were reincarnated together with the ancient inheritance on Long Fei's body. They were Long Fei's guardians. Thus, they had to die too. Boom! Li Yuanba suddenly descended. It was also at this time. The other 6 people also stopped, because someone had blocked their way. The sovereign, Hong Tu said sinisterly, "8 King Kong, right? Today, I want you all to become 8 dead dogs." Buzz! The might of a sovereign burst out, forming a violent tide. The violent tide surged, churning up huge waves as they rolled over. Chun Tianfei took a step forward, and the holy armor King Kong energy around his body shot up into the sky like a heavy stone pillar. It formed into a gigantic wall and said with a heavy voice, "Let me..." Rumble! Holy armor King Kong's had heaven-defying defense. One step to the front, the power of a sovereign smashed down. Rumble! Creak, 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 creak. Crack, 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 crack. The godly armor made loud noises as it cracked open. Fat Men, Chen's body slightly sank as his right leg dug into the ground. However, relying on his own strength, he was able to forcibly suppress the might of a host god. Moreover, at this moment, Fat Men Chen released a wild roar. "F***CK, come again!" Boom! extremely arrogant. Hong Tu's face turned sinister, his right hand moved, and a purple sword pierced over. Die! His figure disappeared. The speed was breathtakingly fast. The black knife raised its eyes and shouted, "Let me—" Boom! With the cut of the great black knife in his hand, his body glowed with a black light. The light ignited on his body. Vajra body. Black flames slash. Shwa. Similarly, his body pierced through the air. With one step, he blocked in front of Fat Men Chen. In that instant, a black light appeared in the air. It was followed by the sound of space splitting and shattering in all directions. As the sovereign retreated, his eyes turned dark. The black knife also retreated, the chi and blood under its chest rolling up, blood dripping down from its sleeves, but no one saw it. The move just now had the black knife heavily injured. His arm was almost chopped off. However, his aura was not weak. He was even more arrogant. Of the two Vajra bodies, one blocked the aura and the other blocked the attack. Very strong. This allowed Long Fei and the retreating army to slightly stabilize the formation. Trash! The young man was extremely dissatisfied with Hong Tu's performance. He snorted coldly and said, "I've raised you for so many years, yet you can't even deal with a few ants. What's the use of having you?" He never thought that the power of the 8 heaven pillar would be cultivated to this extent. It surprised him. However, this made him even more determined to kill. Hong Tu's expression changed greatly as he immediately said, "Sir, please give me one more chance." The young man said coldly, "Then what are you still standing there for? Still not giving it to me?" Hong Tu immediately replied, "Yes." Li Yuanba did not look at Hong Tu, but instead looked at the young man. Then, seeing that the man was extremely close to Long Fei, his eyes trembled slightly. What was he going to do? Others might not know, but Long Fei was too clear about it. Long Fei immediately shouted, "Yuanba, don't come over." Li Yuanba usually looked silly and foolish, but he was smarter than anyone else. Hong Tu was only a small fry of a young man. Even if he was killed, it wouldn't be able to save Long Fei. So, capture the thief first and kill him. First kill the boss. Buzz. The heavy stone coffin behind him fell down. A deafening sound rang out as the door to the sarcophagus fell open. A beam of golden light shot out into the void. The giant spirit axe in Li Yuanba's hand moved. Target, young man. Kill. Shwa. Pure physical power caused the god power in his body to burst out crazily. In that instant, Li Yuanba entered the state of the Vajra body. Hong Tu's expression changed slightly. He wanted to stop him, but the young man coldly said, "You're here to throw your life away? Then I'll help you." Hong Tu did not attack Li Yuanba, but he did not stop and continued to attack the other King Kong. In that instant, Li Yuanba erupted, his hands gripping the axe tightly as he slashed at the young man's head. The strength stripes shot out. This slash, it was as if it could tear the world apart. Unstoppable. Coupled with the power released by Li Yuanba's diamond body, it was even more terrifying. His attacks were not too flashy. Just a moment ago, it was hard. The young man raised his eyes slightly as his lips curled up in a disdainful manner. Is it only this kind of power? He did not move. He allowed Li Yuanba to slash on him. Rumble, as the battle axe cleaved down. A powerful force pressed down crazily. Space itself constantly ruptured, resulting in a loud explosion. However, the axe stopped half a meter above the young man's head. He couldn't go down at all. Ripples appeared on the young man's body, like ripples in water. He gently swung it open. He couldn't split it open. Li Yuanba's pupils constricted. With a leap, he leapt up again and struck down heavily. Boom! It was the same as before, completely blocked by a wave of power. Moreover, this defensive power was countless times stronger than his own. It was as if he couldn't move at all. The other King Kong were all stunned. The people around him were the same. Forget about the code god. Even God Hong-Tu didn't dare to take the power that Li Yuanba had released. However, the man did not move. There were no signs of aura fluctuations on his body. In other words, he did not use any strength at all. He didn't try to defend at all. It was the power of his own cultivation base. How strong was this? Too fierce. Long Fei had already tried out the method from the very beginning. The 10 essence and blood S could not break through its defense, no matter how strongly Yuanba was. It would be difficult. Yuanba, run! Faster! Quickly run! Long Fei shouted loudly. Li Yuanba had also realized the danger, and his eyes slightly tightened. The young man stretched out a finger and smiled. You want to run? Ha ha ha. A ray of light flashed from the tip of his finger. It directly pierced into Li Yuanba's chest, and at the same time, Li Yuanba's body suddenly exploded outwards as fresh blood wildly spurted out, and a fist-sized hole was bored through his chest. One move, sending Li Yuanba flying tens of thousands of kilometers. The mountain range was smashed into ruins. This power, it was hard to imagine. Yuanba, King Kong, F***CK, your grandmother. For a time, many of the King Kong's warriors were enraged, and all of them stormed towards the young man. Chapter 2182. Enrage, Berserk. Chapter 2182. In rage, Berserk's strength was completely unequal. The strength of the young men of God's tribe completely did not belong to this world. Outer space powerhouse. The power was simply too great. It was far, far greater than 100,000 planes. The power of the 8 King Kong was already heaven-defying in the 100,000 dimensions, but they couldn't even break through the young man's defenses. It wasn't that they were weak, but that the outside worlds were too strong. If the planar world was strong, then the power would be strong. Even if the weakest cultivator from the outer realm were to enter the 100,000 planes, they would still be in existence at the peak of powerhouse, suppressing everything else. This was the difference in their levels. What's more, the young man was the God's tribe, and the God's tribe has flowed in his body, making him extremely powerful. No. Seeing the other 6 King Kong, all charging towards him, Long Fei shouted anxiously, No. At this moment, his 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering still continued. Even though he was becoming weaker, his body was still being continuously torn apart. Each time was an indescribable pain. Long Fei's idea was frantically struggling in the 7 glorious blood prison. He used all his strength to take a step forward, and in that instant, the binding force of the 7 glorious blood prison grew tighter. The more Long Fei struggled, the more painful it became. Long Fei was going crazy. He wanted to break the blood prison. He could not let all of his brothers die here. Another step forward, and he was another step closer to the 7 luminaries' blood moon's light pillar. Listen to me. All of you leave this place. Quickly. Did you hear that? Long Fei roared. Even Li Yuanba was not his match, while the other King Kong were even less so. Moreover, right now Li Yuanba's life and death was unknown, and their hearts were filled with rage. This kind of situation would make them even more irrational. However, it didn't matter how loud Long Fei's voice was. The 6 King Kong were all furious. They were brothers. And if the King Kong was injured, then no matter how hard they fought, they would still retaliate. In that instant, the attacks of the six descended, and they all released the power of the Vajra body. Their bodies burned with golden light. His power was incomparably blazing. The 6 beams of light landed heavily. The young man remained motionless, his face filled with disdain. Just you pieces of trash. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just like Li Yuanba. Their attacks were firmly blocked by a single wave of energy half a meter away from their target, unable to penetrate through it all. The young man disdainfully sneered as his fingertips slightly moved. Long Fei's eyes were wide open as he roared, "Don't touch them! Don't touch them!" Boom! Bang, bang, bang. His fingers flashed continuously. Next, the sky spirit's body was penetrated, blood spurting out from its mouth as it was sent flying. The black knife flew out. Dragons subduing flying out. Fat Mention flew out. Arhut, Lin Yusheng all flew out explosively and were sent flying tens of thousands of kilometers away, from 6 different directions. The entire battleground seemed to have been torn apart. The scene was shocking. It was incomparably terrifying. 7 King Kongs were all sent flying. Moreover, all of them were one move. Seeing their blood fly out wildly, Long Fei felt as if his body was being torn apart once again. Ah! Ah! He clenched his teeth and roared towards the sky. F***CK, your ancestors! Ah! The mysterious man's hands moved. Right now, he did not care too much about it, as he grabbed the 7 luminaries' blood moon's light pillar. The blood moon pillar of light had the power to destroy everything. The gigantic giant clan was instantly crushed to pieces. And the White Lotus was the same. He wanted to get out now. He just wanted to explode the feces of the young man. The moment he grabbed onto the pillar of light that contained the blood moon, Long Fei's silhouette started to tremble violently. It was as if his mental energy was completely drained. His brain, heart, and sea of consciousness were all frantically being pulled out. This was not a feeling that the mysterious man should have. However, Long Fei truly felt it, an indescribable pain. Long Fei held back, both of his hands desperately trying to break open the light pillar of the blood moon, wanting to rush out. Ah, ah, ah. White hair flew in all directions. Every hair seemed to be on fire. His entire body seemed to be burning. Ha ha ha. Are you angry? The young man turned around and looked at Long Fei with a sneer, saying, 8 King Kong is your guardian. But they are all dead now. Oh, right. One more. The young man looked at Aoya, who had just arrived, and said with a cold smile, "This girl is not bad." Oya stopped. The long sword in his hand moved slightly, unleashing the power of the heavenly sword Vajra. The power of the Vajra body burst forth. His body was on fire. Oya did not run, did not hide. The 8 King Kong never submitted, even if she was the only one left. Oya. Long Fei's woman. Seeing that she had stopped, Long Fei's heart felt like it was twitching. He anxiously said, "Aoya, don't go up, please don't." Aoya looked at Long Fei and chuckled, then muttered, "If Jojo can die for you, so can I." The scene of Jojo's body exploding with blood appeared in her mind. On the way to battleground, she kept asking herself if she could also do it. He could also be like Jojo. She didn't know. Her love was not as passionate or as selfless as Jojo's. However, she knew that if she loved someone, she could fight to the death for that person, even if she had to give up everything. 7 King Kongs was sent flying one by one. She knew that her power was unable to harm the young man, but she had to use this sword move, because her sword forced King Kong, because Long Fei was the man she loved. Aoya moved. The sword and tent around her body exploded. With a leap, they flew up into the air. The divine sword unfurled. then charged straight down. Long Fei didn't react for a while. What did you say happened to Jojo? What happened to Jojo? When he saw Oya rushing down the stairs, he shouted, Don't. Aoya smiled faintly. He did not stop. The young man sneered and said, What a pity, a beautiful woman. Without waiting for Jojo to fall, the man moved his finger and coldly said one word, Die. Long Fei screamed yet again. Boom. A loud sound echoed out. Aoya's figure also exploded out, flying out from a different direction. 8 King Kong, 8 directions. It was unknown if it was a coincidence or if it was something else, but when these 8 locations were linked together, it just so happened to be an 8 trigrams formation. Long Fei's eyes turned blood red. Jojo is dead. Jojo is dead. Jojo is dead. The rage was stoked once again. Long Fei's body shivered and trembled crazily. His hands became incredibly thick. As it broke off from the beam of light, the beam of light began to distort, deform, and bend. Madness. Chapter 2183, Cage of the Evil Tiger. Chapter 2183, Cage of the Evil Tiger. The death of the giant clan provoked Long Fei. Bai Lian's death had provoked him. His father was provoked by the young man's sword strike that blasted him flying. 8 King Kong's severe injuries stung him. These stimuli infuriated Long Fei, but he can still stay awake. But Jojo's death. Thinking about how he could use the 10 essence and blood to stimulate the ancient power within the dragon-shaped mark without any side effects, now that he thought about it, his heart felt like it couldn't take it anymore. He was well aware of the intensity of the outbreaks of sequelae. How could a weak girl endure this? Although he did not see the scene of Jojo's entire body being drenched in blood, Long Fei could imagine how it would be like. He now understood why the ancient fire soul kept jumping in front of him. That was to tell him not to use the pure blood stimulation process. He was worried about Jojo, but Long Fei's heart felt as though it had been hollowed out all of a sudden. Jojo's death was like a catalyst, causing the anger in his heart to burst out like never before, causing him to completely go crazy, as if he had completely lost all reason. Enraged, the power on Long Fei's body began to burn as streams of blood-colored flames surged explosively. The illusory body also began to crazily increase in strength. He looked like a giant. The entire 7 glorious blood prison was filled with Long Fei's body. The scarlet energy was like flames that were constantly being released from all 4 directions. The entire battleground returned to its original state and turned into a scarlet color, as if it had been illuminated by a bloody light. All the people in battleground were startled. Even Hong Tu was slightly shaken, and his body couldn't help but secretly tremble. Looking at the berserking Long Fei in the blood prison, he couldn't help but to move closer to the young man. My lord, what is this? The young man's eyes were filled with excitement as he said, Such a strong power. It's too powerful, to the point where even the 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering can't withstand it. What exactly is this ancient inheritance? The young man was extremely excited. The power Long Fei released was too terrifying. It had never been able to reach such an astonishing level of power in his entire life. What exactly was this inheritance power? The 7 luminaries' blood moon was a legendary calamity. Even the leader of the gods, Tribe S, had never encountered such a calamity. Its strength was incomparable. However, not only was Long Fei not dead, he was even releasing the power in his body from the blood prison to the point where he almost couldn't endure it. This is not strong. This was a super powerful expert. The power within the 7 luminaries' blood moon was also being stimulated by the power from Long Fei's body and was increasing crazily. However, it could no longer shatter the image of Long Fei. The 7 luminaries' blood moon light pillar transformed. Long Fei's silhouette was still growing larger. Expansion was average. Hong Tu said, "Will the 7 luminaries' blood moon not be able to take it?" The young man lightly said, "That depends on whether or not the anger in his heart is enough." And then, the man coldly said, "Kill all the people he brought in and add a bit of anger onto him. This will make him even more crazy. That way, his power will explode out even more without restraint." He was still unable to see what exactly the ancient inheritance's power was inside Long Fei's body. He couldn't even see a prototype. In other words, the ancient inheritance on his body was just too strong. However, as long as it was stimulated even more, perhaps the power of the ancient inheritance would burst out from Long Fei's body, and he would be able to see everything clearly. Moreover, a strong burst of power would be beneficial to him, absorbing the ancient inheritance in Long Fei's body. Hong Tu immediately replied, "Understood, but—" The young man said, "Speak." Hong Tu said, "If Long Fei breaks out of the blood prison, can he still hold on?" The young man's eyes turned slightly cold. Killing intent filled his eyes. Hong Tu was so scared that he immediately knelt on the ground, not daring to even breathe. The young man narrowed his eyes and said, "This kind of illusion is useless in breaking through the blood prison. The 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering transcends his mental strength, is his cultivation, and is also his physical body. Right now, he has already completely given up on his physical body. And a mere piece of trash from the lower realms. Do you think I would put him in my eyes?" The young man was extremely disdainful. He was not afraid no matter how Long Fei changed. Even Long Zhanting was sent flying by me. How can his son still be in my hands? Humph, not at all. The young man said, "Quickly go and do something." Hong Tu immediately replied, "Yes." Glancing at Long Fei, who was in the blood prison, he said fiercely in his heart, "Long Fei, against the sky? Have you ever fought before? Ha ha ha. From today onwards, 100,000 planes are still under my control. Furthermore, I will become an outer disciple of the gods' tribe, and you will forever disappear from this world." Hong Tu flew out. "Long Fei, watch how I slaughter your subordinates and brothers one by one." Ha ha ha. The sovereign's might was released. Those brothers of Long Fei's kneeled on the ground due to the crushing pressure. Next, Hong Tu's subordinates walked forward one after another, slashing them down, causing blood to gush out wildly. Long Fei, who was in the blood prison, became even more berserk. The young man laughed out loud and said, "Go crazy, go crazy, ha! Go crazy, go berserk. Let me see what's still hidden in your body. Ha ha ha." With his eyes wide open, he did not miss a single detail. At the same time, his heart was also extremely shocked. This ancient inheritance is too powerful. I have never heard of such a powerful inheritance before. Who in the family would dare to look down on me after I absorb it? Even Master has to treat me differently. Thinking of this, he became even more excited. He was right about this trip. In another place, the colossal husky's body gradually shrank, the energy in his body disappearing as well. However, a dense wave of light appeared in front of him. It was similar to that of a door of space-time. On the other side of the door was the Sea of Time. The sound of crashing waves could be heard. Hatch leaned to the side and panted heavily. He muttered, "I've made a call. I've finally made a call. Old Tang, we've already done everything we can. It's all up to Long Fei now." Huff, huff. The husky gasped for breath, quietly waiting. As long as Long Fei could pass through the 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering, he would be able to enter the Sea of Time and be teleported into the universal world. They had to have an extradition person. If Tang Renjia died, the husky would be the extradition person. This was also part of the Human King's plan. However, everything was unexpected. Everything had been within his expectations, but Long Fei was not under his control at all. His existence was constantly changing. No one had expected him to go berserk, go crazy, and he had even given up his physical body, and there was only one thing on his mind. Blast the young man. The trajectory was changing. The body of Long Fei's silhouette continued to grow bigger, and in the end, the powerful afterimage's power directly broke through the blood-red black hole on the 7 luminaries' blood moon. The 7 glorious blood prison collapsed. Long Fei took a step forward. Evil tiger out of its cage. Chapter 2184. God's Tribe Blood Essence. Chapter 2184. God's tribe blood essence. He didn't want his physical body anymore. The tempering of the 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering gone. It didn't matter if his soul was destroyed or not. If you don't want to, then do it. Even if he went insane and went berserk, he still wanted to kill the young man with hatred. Long Fei went berserk in every direction to be able to forcefully break through the 7 glorious blood prison. This kind of power was too terrifying. The 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering was a legendary calamity in the ancient world. Even the number 1 powerhouse of the primordial era had not passed. How strong was it? It was unimaginable, but it had been broken by Long Fei's illusion. Although the 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering was about to disappear, and his power was not as strong as it had started, it was still an extremely abnormal existence to be able to break through it. More importantly, what did it mean for Long Fei to break through the blood prison at this time? This meant that he had given up everything, be it his physical body or his cultivation base. He had given up on everything, no matter what kind of price he had to pay. Long Fei had to kill this young man. That was his character. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The 4 seas were in complete chaos. The world was trembling violently, and the battleground realm seemed like it could not take it any longer as it continued to crack, while space started to distort and distort. The scarlet blood energy on Long Fei's body burned crazily. He was like a mad demon. The young man raised his head to look at the incomparably huge illusion of Long Fei. He was not afraid, but was instead excited. Ha ha ha! So powerful, so powerful. Even the 7 luminaries' blood moon was broken through. Break through the tribulation. This is something that only exists in legends. I never would have thought that it would appear on his body. It's really too shocking. The man was extremely excited. To break through was to break through. The strength required was extraordinary, let alone the 7 luminaries' blood moon suffering, which was even more powerful. The power of the tribulation has yet to release the elementary form of the ancient inheritance within his body. What exactly is the ancient inheritance in his body? The young man was extremely shocked in his heart. Roar. Long Fei was like a beast roaring at the sky. At this moment, the sky above Battleground immediately shattered as pieces fell down one after another. It was as if a screen had been cut open. A sound rang out, crushing the heavens and shattering the earth. This power, the heavens are breaking. Heavens, the heavens are breaking. What kind of power is this? The people on the ground of Battleground moaned. Their minds seemed to have been crushed. The other law gods also began to kneel on the ground, shivering. They, too, were unable to endure it. Even Hong Tu's body sank as he fell from midair. He could not withstand the crushing pressure from the heaven-breaking fist. So he asked himself, in astonishment, just what kind of power is it? No one knew. The young man didn't know either. However, seeing Long Fei's angry roar crush Battleground sky, he became even more excited. Ha ha ha! So powerful! I like it! His voice hadn't died down yet. Long Fei's huge shadow moved and growled out in a heavy tone, "Die!" His voice was dark and fierce. The blood-colored flame moved, and when Long Fei's fist smashed down heavily, his eyes turned blood-red. Walala! Walala! The crimson flames burned the space black, striking out with a fist. The young man raised his eyes slightly and said coldly, "This kind of power is unable to break through my defenses." Just like before, he remained motionless. He had no intention to defend at all. Boom, boom. Power like thunder, strong gales like blades, crazily crushing down. The young man's long hair swayed slightly, and his clothes rustled. He couldn't help but wrinkle his brow. At this moment, the phantom fist descended. Crack! The formless shield above the young man's head instantly shattered, emitting a clear sound as it shattered. The defense that was stimulated by the 10 essence and blood's power and could not be broken by the 8 King Kong's joint attack was instantly destroyed by a punch. The man's expression turned sinister as he unhappily punched out to block the attack. He directly blocked Long Fei's shadow fist that was falling down and shouted, "Trash! Trash your mom!" Long Fei roared. His left fist punched downwards vertically, striking his right fist. Boom! A wave of blood energy quickly spread out, shooting out one light wave after another. Plop! The young man sank to his knees. His expression became even more sinister. Everyone was shocked, especially Hong Tu. His body was trembling. He was very clear about the identity of this young man, and he was even more clear about the power behind his identity. God's tribe. People with God's tribe blood vein. His strength. Unparalleled. But yet, he was forced to kneel on the ground by Long Fei's 2 fists. Could it be that Long Fei was stronger than him? This Hong Tu did not dare to think further. The more he thought about it, the more his body trembled. "You're courting death." The young man let out a mournful roar, and a golden light burst out from his body. He raised his eyes, which were bloodshot. His body's power began to burst forth without restraint. It formed into golden-colored flames. It burned furiously, and at this moment it had directly blocked Long Fei's fist that was being crushed down. Angry, completely enraged, he was from the God's tribe. He was the supreme existence, other than the God's tribe. He had never kneeled down to anyone, and furthermore, all must kneel to him. This was the first time he had been crushed to the point of kneeling down. To God's tribe, this was the greatest insult. The golden flames on the man's body went berserk, shooting into the sky and dispersing everywhere. The sky sword in his hand moved and shouted, "Trash! I'll let you experience the power of God's tribe." Buzz! The sword shadows flashed, and the sky seemed to scatter. The man's forehead moved, and a gold light flashed before disappearing. In that instant, in the sky, a golden light came crushing down from above the top of Long Fei's illusion. Hundreds of millions of sword images came crushing down. Kneel down! Long Fei's enormous illusory figure sank slightly. He didn't wait for the man to crush him. He directly jumped up from the ground and rushed towards the sky. "Cripple your entire family." Boom! Activating all of his strength, he heavily charged forward. The two forces intersected. The world had collapsed. The scene was indescribable, and the entire battleground realm began to collapse even more violently. It wouldn't be long before the entire plane completely crumbled, and it would finally disappear from the universe forever. This power, my God, Battleground can't take it anymore. Lord God, what do we do? Hong Tu also had a stupefied expression. He didn't know either. Seeing such a powerful impact, he felt like he was an ant. When Long Fei landed, the enormous illusion slightly darkened. The ground sank hundreds of meters into the ground, forming a huge crater. In the sky, the young man also exploded into a retreat as his face became even more savage. I want to see just how much power you have left. God's tribe blood essence. Open. Chapter 2185. 8 Vajra, Heaven Pillar. Chapter 2185. 8 Vajra, Heaven Pillar. After the two collisions, the young man did not have any advantage at all, and was instead squashed by Long Fei until he kneeled on the ground. This was an insult. He had to wash up, using blood to wash it. Thus, the young man moved his finger and released a drop of blood essence. God's tribe's blood essence. A drop of pure blood essence floated in front of him. Then, once the blood essence fell, it entered the space between his eyebrows, and a mark also appeared on the center of his forehead. The mark was a type of ferocious beast, a fierce beast that Long Fei had never seen before. At this moment, a golden shadow appeared between his brows, roaring ferociously. Then, the power from the young man's body seemed to explode. His expression also became malevolent. He also had the ancient inheritance on him. Any disciple of the gods' tribe's blood vein would have ancient inheritance. The gods' tribe controlled almost all of the ancient inheritance. Long Fei felt the strength of the young man suddenly change, and his expression sank. Although he was in a berserk state, his brain was still clear that the actions of the young man just now were the pure blood stimulation process. He was using his blood essence to stimulate the power of the ancient inheritance. He released the power of the ancient inheritance even more strongly. A drop of blood essence. The young man was as if he was a completely different person. At the start, Long Fei's aura could still suppress him a little, but after a while, the aura on his body seemed to have become one-sided and was completely unable to resist. The young man laughed sinisterly. Let me tell you what is the power of the ancient inheritance. As soon as he finished, his figure disappeared. Long Fei was shocked. It's too fast. He couldn't keep up. He couldn't keep up with his berserk mode at all. Lightning flashed. Shwa! Long Fei's simulacrum shook violently, and an illusory arm immediately flew out, flying away. The instant it left Long Fei's body, the illusory arm quickly disappeared into the air. Although it was just an illusion, Long Fei still felt an intense pain. It was as if his arm had been torn apart. One move. Long Fei felt that he was not his match. The young man appeared and coldly laughed. You dare to be so arrogant with me? You think you are worthy of it? Trash from the lower planes, what qualifications do you have to act so arrogantly in front of me? Huh. A huge force crazily crushed Long Fei's figure. The pain of losing his arm made his shadow twitch and tremble. In this kind of situation, Long Fei's strength was not his opponent. Pure blood stimulation process. You do. I have one too. The image of Long Fei shook, and suddenly he realized that there was a very serious problem. Right now, he was only an illusion, and he did not even have a physical body. Where did this blood essence come from? The young man was also laughing loudly and said, That's right, it is indeed the pure blood stimulation process. Where's your blood essence? You don't even have a physical body right now. So where did you get that blood essence from? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. He began to laugh maniacally. Blood essence came from the body. Where did blood essence come from the body? On the other side, within the 7 glorious blood prison, Long Fei's flesh had already been crushed. There is some blood, but that blood was useless. What he needed was blood essence. Long Fei's eyes became sinister, his heart secretly shocked. Blood essence, blood essence. Even if he had blood essence, it wouldn't be of any use. His body was already gone. Where could the drop of blood have landed on? On his body. The body of the dragon-shaped mark was the source of power. If he did not even have a body, how would he be able to unleash the power from the dragon-shaped mark? Ha ha ha. Trash, have you become an idiot? The young man laughed maniacally. Now you only have this broken shadow. With your shadow dead, even if you have the power to transcend the heavens, you won't be able to recover. Trash, tremble. The power on your body doesn't belong to you. It belongs to our gods, tribe. Return it to me now. The young man moved again. His figure disappeared again. However, he still couldn't see it clearly. The speed was too fast, and he couldn't keep up with it. But right at this moment, from 8 different directions of battleground, 8 pillars of light suddenly shot up to the sky. They linked together in a flash, forming an 8 trigrams shape. At the same time, Li Yuanba's voice roared angrily, "Boss, we have blood essence." It didn't matter whether Long Fei agreed or not. A drop of blood essence floated on the bodies of everyone in 8 King Kong, and after that they floated in the air and rushed into Long Fei's body one after another. Boom. God Power blood. Boom. Wild Blade blood. Boom. Divine Armor blood essence. Streams of extremely pure blood essence. The 8 King Kong was one of the 8 great heaven pillar. Their powers were different from the ancient inheritance, but they were passed down from the very beginning to the end. He was incomparably powerful. The moment the 8 King Kong's blood essence entered Long Fei's body, a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. System beep. Long Fei's heart trembled. The system is still here. He thought that the system was just hiding within his body. When the body was destroyed, the system would break and disappear. However, the system was actually in his shadow. In other words, the system was not as simple as an AI chip, and it was not something that could be explained by ordinary technology. It was even more mysterious, and it was even more out of Long Fei's expectations. However, these were not things that needed to be considered now. Ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for injecting 8 Vajra blood vein into his body. Ding! Congratulations to the player Long Fei for stimulating his soul with the 8 Vajra blood vein and activating the soul blood. Ding! System prompt. Will you release the soul blood? Soul blood. Blood of the soul? Blood of the soul? Long Fei asked himself a few words, but the system did not give any response because the system will not give you any explanation. The system did not have any description for soul blood. However, according to Long Fei's deduction, it was like a drop of blood essence in a body. It should be used to stimulate the power within the body, the power of the ancient inheritance. But Long Fei didn't know if its stimulation would have the same side effects. I can't care so much anymore. Long Fei roared. The young man looked at the 8 pillars of light and sneered. You 8 pieces of trash aren't dead yet? With your current cultivations, you can't even use the heaven pillar's power. Even if you gave it to Long Fei, it would be useless. Trash is destined to be trash. It can't be changed. Ha ha ha. He didn't care at all. This kind of low-level plane was useless no matter how powerful the 8 heaven pillars were, no matter how talented they were, because they could not cultivate the skin off the heaven pillar's strength. So this kind of power was basically useless in the universal world. The 8 heaven pillar S, the guardians of Long Fei, it was not as though they were guardians. In the man's eyes, they were only 8 pieces of trash. But the man's face suddenly darkened. His gaze turned and stared at Long Fei's illusionary figure. Long Fei grinned and laughed sinisterly. As you wish. 10 drops of soul blood. Power, activate. Chapter 2186, Mad Rampage, Undying. Chapter 2186, Mad Rampage, Undying. The 8 Vajra blood vein acted as the guide to stimulate the soul blood in Long Fei's body. The power of this blood was far higher than that of ordinary blood essence. Moreover, Long Fei was a madman. You must stimulate the power of the ancient inheritance with your blood essence. I am 10 drops of soul blood. His physical body had already been destroyed, and his shadow had also entered a berserk state. It wouldn't be long before he died, too. Before he died, he would do everything. All. Long Fei unhesitatingly stimulated 10 drops of soul blood. The soul blood moved, once again surrounding Long Fei's figure. The young man's face sank. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. You can't even withstand the pure blood stimulation process, so it's impossible for you to activate the soul blood. His facial expression changed drastically. Others might not know, but as a person of the gods' tribe, he knew very well what soul blood meant. Only those who had cultivated the ancient inheritance to the limit would be able to unleash the soul blood, but Long Fei did not even know what the ancient inheritance's strength was. He had never cultivated anything. How did he manage to ignite the soul blood? Other than that, the man also knew how strong the soul blood was. His lips were dry, and his expression became ugly. Impossible. It's impossible for you to cultivate a soul blood. Absolutely impossible. Boom. When the drop of blood essence landed, it didn't enter his right arm, but rather a mark that was imprinted on his neck. The mark was like a comma. Boom. Another drop of blood essence fell down. It was the same as if a comma was branded on Long Fei's neck. Boom. 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 The 10 drops of soul blood all landed and circled around Long Fei's neck. At the same time, the 10 drops of soul blood were linked together and looked like a necklace. This scene, Long Fei had a familiar feeling. Flame shadow. It seems like the people in the fire shadow had this kind of mark before. Suddenly, rumble, rumble, rumble. An extremely intense energy roar sounded out from within Long Fei's body. The 10 soul blood S began to frantically fire out the super strong energy from within his body. When these energies crashed into his body, it was indescribably comfortable. It was as if he was holding it in his hand. Endless huge. He had seen the soul blood imprint before, and it was the same as the way Long Fei released the blood essence. Now, it seems like the blood essence Long Fei had released was really the blood essence of a soul blood. He felt a surge of fear. Lunatic, you're a fucking lunatic. When he saw the powerhouse release his soul blood, he also only released a drop, but Long Fei, he directly released a string of them. 10 drops of soul blood were branded on his neck. The power of the soul blood began to erupt wildly. The struggle for hegemony was shaking. The entire 100,000 planes were shaking. A series of moans sounded out. This low-level plane was simply unable to withstand the power of the soul blood on Long Fei's body. Bam! A loud explosion resounded. Hong Tu's body sank. The powers of the laws, and the laws have all collapsed. He was a sovereign of 100,000 planes. He controlled all the power of the laws in the 100,000 dimensions. Just a moment ago, Long Fei's power had caused one of the laws in the 100,000 dimensions to crack into pieces. He could no longer control it. Following that, bam, bam, a series of explosions sounded out. The energy of the ancient code crumbled as it was grinded to pieces by the energy released by Long Fei's body. Law collapse. The 100,000 planes began to grow chaotic. Hong Tu's face became paler and paler. If all of the power of the laws were to collapse, then this sovereign, it became an empty shelf. Before the hegemonical war had even ended, his position as sovereign had already disappeared. Even if he won and his laws completely collapsed, he wouldn't be able to control it. Hong Tu looked at the young man and said, "Master." The young man's gaze darkened as he glared at Hong Tuesday. Hong Tu did not dare to make a single sound. The young man stared at Long Fei at this moment. Several 10 essence and blood floated above his hands and entered the mark between his brows. Boom, boom, boom. The power in his body also started to increase at a crazy rate. So what if you release the soul blood? You don't even know what the power of the ancient inheritance in your own body is. How are you going to control it? Moreover, once this weak image of yours is released, you won't be able to withstand the aftereffects at all. No matter what happens today, you won't be able to escape death. There was a thick air shield defense on the young man's body. He only had one thing to do right now: drag. As long as he delayed until Long Fei's side effects erupted, he would definitely die. Moreover, at that time, he would also be able to absorb the ancient inheritance's energy from Long Fei's body. He was still the winner. Long Fei laughed sinisterly and said, "Even if you cannot escape death, you will still die first." He moved. The soul blood's power erupted. His figure disappeared. This time, the young man was stupefied. Right now, he was the same as Long Fei just now. He could not clearly see Long Fei's speed at all, and even more so could not sense his existence. This was because Long Fei's speed was simply too fast. It was so fast that he couldn't even imagine it. Even if he released a few 10 essence and blood S, they wouldn't be able to keep up. The strength of the soul blood was way stronger than the strength of the blood essence. Rumble! A loud explosion resounded. The defense on the young man's body shattered. He was like a dead dog as he was squashed to his knees. The ground sank, and a radius of tens of thousands of km followed suit. The surroundings were filled with unfathomably deep crevices. Battleground was shocked. Many of the members of the main temple's army were immediately killed. The soul bead was still absorbing. Kneel down again. Blood hung from the corners of the young man's mouth, and his hair was disheveled. His clothes were tattered, and he was in an incomparably sorry state. Ah! Ah! He roared out crazily, raised his eyes, and said angrily, "You dog!" Not waiting for him to finish, Long Fei fiercely slapped down. Pa! The young man was immediately flipped over and landed in midair. The pressure on Long Fei once again sunk, and once again crushed the young man, making him kneel on the ground. Long Fei roared, "Who the hell is the trash now?" Huh! Blood sprayed wildly. The man was completely abused by Long Fei. He didn't even have the strength to resist. The God's tribe is impressive. Awesome. Show your father how awesome you are. Long Fei crazily abused and vented his anger. However, no matter how hard he tried to crush the young man, the wound on his head didn't change at all and didn't decrease in the slightest. If his HP would not decrease, then he would be unable to kill him. However, Long Fei was obviously a tyrant, but he just could not do it. What went wrong? Aha! Ha! Aha! Ha! The young man began to laugh maniacally again. Do you feel powerless? Do you think that such a powerful force like yours can't kill me? Ha ha ha! Trash, you're still far from being worthy. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2187. Even if I have to kill him, I will. Chapter 2187. Even if I have to kill him, I will. When the soul blood erupted, Long Fei's strength completely crushed it. But no matter how powerful his strength was, his attacks were still explosive. However, he was unable to do any substantial damage to the young man. This was a hard wound. The groove above his head didn't change at all. It wasn't that he couldn't break through the defense. It wasn't that he didn't have enough attack power. If it was a defense, if the attack was not strong enough, the MIS effect would have appeared. However, the MIS did not appear. I don't understand. Why did this happen? Long Fei had never encountered one. He could clearly crush her, but he could not kill her. Blood dripped from the corners of the young man's mouth as he maliciously smiled. You're still far from enough. So what if we release the soul blood? Can you kill me? If we can't kill him, ha ha ha. The young man laughed out loud and said with a heavy tone, I am a descendant of the gods' tribe. Do you think you can kill me? Very arrogant. In such a low-level realm, even if he exploded with great power, he still wouldn't be able to kill Ning Xuema. This is a limitation of the planar order, or the power of the ancient inheritance mark on his forehead. Long Fei didn't know. However, no matter what restrictions he had to do it even if he didn't want to. While the young man was speaking, Long Fei's enormous strength once again crushed him like thunder, and heavily crushed the man once more, making him kneel on the ground. Rumble! Rumble! He knelt on the ground once more. With an extremely ugly expression, the young man became even more annoyed. He hardened his heart as he gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, Your life must be mine. I will definitely kill you with my own hands. Of course. Boom. After another heavy crush, the young man was forced to his knees in the mud, half of his body buried in it. In front of Long Fei's powerful soul blood, he had no way of resisting. The soul blood's power was too strong. Uff, spitting out a mouthful of blood, the man's pupils shrank as he said, You won't be able to kill me no matter how powerful your strength is. However, the number did not change at all. The blood slot remained motionless. Why? Why? Long Fei asked himself unceasingly, Does he have a protective treasure on him? But they were clearly squashed to the point of kneeling on the ground and spitting blood. But why weren't there the slightest bit of damage? It was unreasonable. This was completely against the rules of the game. Even the boss had been crushed, so why was it unable to deal any damage? Moreover, after continuously thrashing Long Fei, the 10 drops of soul blood's energy in his body were quickly consumed. His body started to sway. The aftereffects of his blood essence were unbearable. What would the aftereffects of the 10 drops of soul blood erupt with? Right now, he was still only an illusion without a physical body. The aftereffects were powerful and backlash. If his illusion could not withstand it, it would turn into ashes. Was no longer afraid of death. However, before he died, he had to kill this boss. The young man felt the energy in Long Fei's body fluctuate and laughed. The soul blood is about to use up all of its energy, right? Soon you won't be able to endure the backlash from the soul blood. Ha ha! Trash! You didn't even know about the soul blood, and you dared to release 10 drops at once. Just you wait to die. No matter how powerful the powerhouse was, he would never be able to release 10 drops of soul blood like Long Fei. This kind of power was to forcefully release the power of the ancient inheritance. The consequence of being released by force was that they would suffer the backlash from the soul blood. This sort of pain was unbearable. This characteristic already appeared from the energy fluctuations around Long Fei's body. As long as the soul blood's backlash ability was activated, he would die immediately. Ha ha ha. Do you feel your body trembling? Do you think soul blood can be so easily released? Trash is trash. The young man laughed coldly in satisfaction. However, without waiting for him to laugh, Long Fei's palm fiercely slapped down, turning him on the ground. Who is the trash? Who kneels on the ground like a dead dog? This slap on the face of the young man felt extremely uncomfortable. His expression became even more sinister. The man let out a roar and said, "I will definitely do it myself." Not waiting for him to finish, Long Fei sent yet another wave of energy crashing down heavily. Bam! The young man was once again blasted to the ground, incomparably uncomfortable. The blood groove remained unchanged. Boom! A rumbling sound came from Long Fei's body. The soul blood's power was quickly shrinking, and its power was about to disappear. The moment it disappeared, the soul blood would open its antiphasic force. At that time, Long Fei's gigantic shadow roared. Fuck! A shadow flashed. After he landed heavily in front of the man, Long Fei punched out with both of his fists like a violent storm. Before the soul blood's power was completely used up, Long Fei would do everything he could to kill the young man. Bang, 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 bang. The strongest power. It was also the last of the soul blood's power. A crazy critical strike. The young man also continuously retreated, his chest exploding from the impact. The clothes on his back was directly ripped apart. Miserable screams rang out nonstop. Long Fei did the same. He attacked with full power. Both of his eyes were focused on the top of the man's head. In just half a minute, Long Fei had sent out over 10,000 punches. If it were a god, forget about a mere Hong Tu, even 10,000 of them had all been killed by him. However, no damage at all. Even -1 didn't have any damage. Why? Why is that? Long Fei's brain was about to explode, but he still couldn't understand. Where's the problem? In his previous life, he had never encountered such a situation. Ha ha ha. Aha. You can't beat me, right? No matter how strong my strength is, it shouldn't be able to kill me, right? Ha ha ha. Trash. So what if it was a soul blood? You still can't kill me, and you... The young man's body suddenly sank and stopped, resisting Long Fei's punch. The young man said gloomily, "Your time of death has come. The soul blood's counterattack has begun." Indeed, in half a minute, Long Fei tried his best, but no. And now, the soul blood's counterattack began. The shadow was shrinking rapidly, like a deflated balloon. The huge shadow began to shrink slowly, and its strength began to flow out crazily. The soul blood mark on his neck disappeared bit by bit. Rumble! Rumble! With a loud bang, his body began to explode. The young man laughed out loud. The soul blood's counterattack. You only have one shadow left. I want to see how you can endure it. Buzz! Long Fei's body sank. The feeling of the heart collapsing slowly spread out from the deepest part of his body. It was completely different from the backlash from his blood essence. It was 10,000 times stronger. He couldn't bear it. Long Fei could not bear it. However, even if he could not endure it, Long Fei would definitely not lower his head, and would still step out as he rushed towards the young man. Even if he died, I'm going to kill him too. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.